this is not meant to be a 2 hours episode once edited, if you get my meaning. I guess we should try to stay on point and concise.
Yep.
Yeah? Shut up, David. Let's go.
Shut up, David. We've been talking forever. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Vassals of Kingsgrave, an offshoot of a podcast of Ice and Fire, devoted to A Song of Ice and Fire, and sometimes Game of Thrones, and all things nerdy. All views expressed here today are those of the individual vassal, and not of that of Vassals of Kingsgrave as a whole. In today's episode, we'll be discussing Doctor Who, specifically the end of Peter Capaldi's and Stephen Moffat's eras of the show, and we're covering specifically Season 10, as well as the surrounding Christmas special. This episode will spoil any events in the recent season of Doctor Who, as well as previous episodes. My name is David, a.k.a. davidhhh on the forums. I'll be your host today, and I'm joined by Jock.
Hello, Jock, my little Jock on the forums.
And Marie.
Hi, it's Mary on Nymeria on the forums.
Alex.
I'm Alix, also known as Aiwendil on the forums.
A little background, a little funny. We've been planning this for a long time, and this was supposed to be my first ever Vassals of Kingsgrave, and that didn't work out, so now it's my first ever hosting. So bear with me, we're going to have a little fun. So first of all, let's go around and talk about everyone's, what's your personal experience with Doctor Who, your background? When did you start watching? How did you find out about it? Did a friend tell you? Did you read about it on the internet? Whatever. And how much of it you've seen? Have you seen New Who, Old Who, a little of everything, just certain doctors or whatever? And what's your favorite doctor?
I started watching maybe 3 years ago because friends told me about it. I mean, I knew about it for a while. I was just... I'm not good with shows which have changing main characters. I knew that it was going to be hard for me to change doctors. I knew this was going to be a sad time, and that every time I would be like, oh no, I don't want to see him or her go. And yeah, anyway, and I was right about this. That happened. Yep.
Yep.
But so I've only seen New Who. I kind of want to watch the classic Who, but I'm not sure. I mean, I cannot really start at the beginning because there are some missing episodes anyway, and I'm not sure I could even find the beginning. But I hate starting something not at the beginning, so I'm not sure. You're gonna have to tell me about where I should start, David.
Well, the great thing about this show is that there's a million starting points. This season was even a new starting point for some.
Yeah.
You know.
My favorite doctor, that's the very, very hard question.
Mm-hmm.
I've been rewatching Matt Smith's run lately, and I just remembered how much I love him. But I love David Tennant. I loved Matt Smith. I loved Capaldi in a different way. I guess if I would have to choose, though, if I really had, choose one, I would say 11. Yeah, 11.
Okay. Sure. Got the wrong way.
Right.
They're all good in their own way.
Yeah,
Next.
I love all of them.
So I started watching Doctor Who about 5 years ago. I would say it was season 6 was about to start with Amy and Rory, I think. And I thought, oh, this looks cool. I'm going to watch it from the beginning. And so I did. And but only from the beginning of New Who. So I've only seen New Who and a few clips from YouTube of Old Who. But like Marie, I don't really know where to start to go watch the old episodes.
Well, there's 26
I'm hoping
seasons.
I'm hoping you have some guidance on this, David.
Well, there's only 26 seasons before these, so...
That's easy.
Great. Awesome. From New Who, my favorite doctor is also a very hard question. I love all of them. I think it's a tie between Tennant and Capaldi.
Mm-hmm.
They're very different, and all of them are very different, but I don't really know how to differentiate between how much I love each of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I like Matt Smith and Christopher Eccleston a little less, but I still love them, a lot.
Okay. Yep, I'm with you.
And I'm kind of the same with companions, except for Rose, that I don't really like.
Oh, that's dangerous.
My favorite. Yeah, I know.
It's okay. Like who you like, you know?
I mean, I don't hate her.
That's fine.
I just don't like her as much as the others.
That's fine.
I love Rose because the Doctor fell in love with her, and I'm a romantic, so I have issues with a show without a love story, and that's not really something Doctor Who does a lot. So I was like, yay!
Right. It had never done it before.
Amy and Rory.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Emmy and Rory, obviously. Yeah.
Oh my
that
God.
came later.
Paul McGann did it in one episode, which was his only episode. So, but you're right. You're right. So how about you, Jock?
My first encounter of the show on TV when I was either 6 or 7, it was the Christopher Eccleston episode with the pig from set in Parliament. And from there I've watched lots of them from all different doctors. My favourite Doctor would be Tom Baker. Because of his brilliant manic alien performances.
Yep. One of the more popular ones.
Yeah.
So, I'm the old school fan of the bunch. I've been watching this show since like 84-ish. Longer than most of you have been alive.
Longer than all of us have
right?
been alive.
I discovered it in a bizarre way, though. I had a couple of friends, and I'll throw a shout out to Tim in case he's listening later. And we were on the track team and we're like nerdy friends, and we all like comics. And it was Tim and Bill, and they were talking about this thing, and I was like, what comic is that? And it turned out it was Doctor Who they were talking about. And I went, well, that sounds cool. Let me start watching. What happened to be airing on our local PBS in America at the time happened to be one of the only season of like Who that was one story. Like it wasn't really, they just sort of had like a loose thing binding the whole season together. But I started with the last part of a 6 story arc. And so it was a total bizarre mess, but I still loved it and kept watching. That was a Tom Baker story called Armageddon Factor, and pretty much watched ever since. I'm one of those, as you may have guessed from here, that doesn't do things half-heartedly. I jumped right in with 2 feet and more and the whole body, and like within a year or two, I co-founded a Doctor Who fan club here in New England, in America, and that ran for a few years, and was on like the High Council and the editor of our newsletter. I actually went to a whole bunch of conventions. I'd already been going to conventions for like comics, so it was easy to kind of bounce over. I was in this weird thing called an amateur press alliance where you make your own fanzines kind of thing, and went to conventions and have met Doctors 2 through 7. In fact, like
awesome.
Colin Baker and I think the producer of Doctor Who came to our room party. Came to our room party at a convention in New Orleans. How cool is that, right? Then I kind of backed off for a few years. Then the show went off the air, and then there was this thing called Big Finish, some of you may have heard of, where these fans that actually produced Doctor Who on audio and still are to this day, and I kind of came back into the fold through that. And I remember when New Who started, the first episode, Rose, leaked to the internet. Apparently, like in Canada, somehow they had somehow someone in Canada like leaked it who was working on the network. And I remember watching this thinking, oh, I hope this is good. And it was like better than I'd ever dared hope it could be, because it was all the like neat sci-fi stuff of Doctor Who, but the more modern like emotions, and, you know, Rose was just so awesome and all that. So I loved it, and I've been like full on ever since. And here I am talking about it with you guys. Favorite Doctor? That's tough. Like all of you, I mean, pretty much all of them. But if I had to narrow it down, I would probably go with Colin Baker as my very favorite, with, let's see, John Pertwee and David Tennant right behind, and Christopher Eccleston just a hair behind, only because we didn't have enough time with him. I think he would have been one of the best if we'd had more than a season. So that's me.
Yeah.
But we only got the season. And I think, honestly, it was one of the strongest seasons of Doctor Who ever. 3 of my favorite stories of all time are in that one season.
Yeah, it's a good season. It's just probably wasn't helped with I mean, they didn't have money, so it just looks cheap, but it's a good, the stories are good.
But it's so well written.
Yeah.
So anyways, let's get to this season.
Yeah.
So let's give, we'd like to give with Vessel of Kingsgrave lemon cake ratings, but let's do Sonic Shade ratings. So out of 1 to 5, what would you give this season? I know it's hard to do a whole season, but I'd rather do that than each episode because that would take an hour.
I think out of Capaldi's run, it's probably the one I loved best because I loved Bill. So 4, 4 Sonic Shades.
I think I'm gonna give it a 3.5 Sonic Shades. It wasn't my favorite Capaldi season. I liked the previous one with Clara better, even though I love Bill as a companion, but I felt the stories were a little bit weaker this season. It kind of felt like a filler season where they knew they wouldn't have much time left with Capaldi and Bill, and so they didn't introduce any revolutionary new stories, and it kind of fell flat for me. I liked the ending, the last 2-parter, because it kind of kept the attention going to the end. And I was probably more enthusiastic about it when I first watched it. But now looking back, I don't think it was the best of both.
Okay. Jock?
I give it 4 or 5. I think some of the middle was quite weak. The ending was good, and the beginning was good. I like seeing Ice Warriors again.
So for me, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm going to give it a 4 because I think overall it was one of the stronger seasons we've had. But at the same time, I don't think, other than maybe the penultimate episode of the first part of the 2-parter, I feel like there weren't any real classics. Every story I liked just about. I don't think there were any real clunkers like in some seasons, but at the same time, there weren't any that I'm going to go back and go, oh my god, I can't wait to watch this one again. But I do think overall it was solid. I'm going to give it a 4 and a solid 4, because if anything, maybe a 4.25, but I'll round it to 4. It was good. I liked it. I liked some of the episodes that everyone else hated, which we'll get to later, and the other way around, too, so we'll see. Overview. We'll talk about the season. So first of all, I think it was generally well received by critics and by fans online. I think a lot of people thought that this season had brought things back up a little, where people were kind of getting a little tired of Moffat and all that. The critics gave it pretty good reviews. There's this thing called the AI, which is the Appreciation Index, which in Britain they ask the public and they take a poll. And it was pretty steady, around 82, 83 for the whole season, with 1 or 2 episodes higher or lower. The ratings were way down, though. In fact, 8 of the episodes from this season were the very lowest rated episodes of modern Doctor Who ever. But how much of that is due to the show itself, and how much of that is because no one watches TV when it airs anymore? We all binge and we download and we whatever. So I'm not sure. Anything you want to talk overall before we get into each character? Like, did you like any of the arcs? Did you is there anything overall you want to say before we get into each character?
I didn't feel as engaged with this season as I've been in the past, even though the characters were great. I felt like it could have been a more put together story from the beginning of the season. I felt like the first half of the season was just individual episodes that didn't really have a lasting impression on me. And the second half, because of the 3-part episode on the monks and the 2-parter at the end, had a bit more continuity and were a bit more engaging. So that was my negative review.
So let's get into the characters. Let's start obviously with the Doctor. What'd you think of Peter Capaldi? Was his performance better this year? More polished? More calling it in? What do you think? Did you like him?
It's been too long. I'm not sure if he was better this year than the previous years. I mean, he's not my favorite Doctor, but I think I've really admired everything he's done with the Doctor. And he's been a great, immense actor throughout all of this. There were moments in this season and in the previous one where I really, really felt for him and I really liked watching him. So I don't know about comparing this season to the previous ones, but he was great, definitely.
Yeah, I think he had fewer big moments this season. When I think about his big moments, I think primarily about his speech in the Zygon inversion.
That was
and the
most,
two episode, the episode where he's, I don't remember if it was Heaven Sent or Hell Bent, one of the two where he's in hell and doing the same thing every day for 1,000 years or something.
Yep.
Those were really strong moments that were written for him, and I don't feel like there were any like that in this season. But overall, Capaldi is always great. Like, every little line and little expression are always really on point.
Yeah, I feel like David Tennant and Matt Smith and Christopher Eccleston as well, they were all great, but I feel like I love them more because of the way their doctor is. Like, Matt Smith is really this childish doctor. It's just he's really, really funny. I love him. I love everything he does. But in terms of big moments and inspiring speeches and really great performances, I think Peter Capaldi was either given probably better scripts or also brought something else to the performance, like a more serious and mature doctor. The acting was obviously and manifestly and visibly awesome, which is not a critic for the other doctor. It's just there were really parts of this where you felt like in a theater, it was really, really great.
I think Capaldi did better this season than in his past ones. Again, it's hard to tell.
I think you have a good point that he didn't have as many great single moments as he did. Like, I mean, I think definitely the Zygon episode will be the defining Capaldi speech ever. But at the same time, I feel like he was settled in. I think one of the problems that you have sometimes with all doctors and all, or more I should say, even script editors and producers, is that when the new doctor starts, they don't know what to do with it, and they kind of come up with some ideas and throw them against the wall and see what sticks. And one of the things that bothered me with the beginning of the Capaldi era was this whole I don't understand humanity at all thing, because that doesn't make any sense, because the doctors lived 2,000 years among humans, and he's had companions through most of that time. And in fact, of all the doctors to have that, I mean, let's face it, when he were generated into Capaldi, Matt Smith had just spent 1,000 years living with people on the Christmas planet. So he should understand people more than any other doctor ever. So this whole, oh, I don't understand, are you really sad thing was just bizarre to me. It would have made sense, like, for the second doctor or the first or whatever. But now when you're 12 in, it just didn't make sense. So, I mean, I like the idea. Like, if there was some reason for it, it might have worked. So they kept trying to, like, figure out what to do with him. And I think by the middle of last season and then into this season, they had kind of settled him in as kind of fatherly to his companions. If there's anything we're going to remember from him besides that one speech, it'll be the quote, be kind. That is, I think, Peter Capaldi's doctor. He has no patience for people who aren't kind, but all the patience in the world for people who are. And I think that came out more this season, and particularly in his relationship with Bill, than we saw it with Clara and with others. So I liked that, what Bill brought out of him this season, even if he didn't have those, like, particular moments. Speaking of which, what do you think of his relationships with Bill and Nardole? Did you like it, that whole fatherly thing he did? It was kind of professorly and fatherly and more almost grandfatherly.
Yeah, I liked it. I think I loved Clara, but I'm not sure about what I think of companions who go through different doctors. And I think that in that sense, Clara was neither 11th nor 12th companion. Like, she's not, she's halfway. Like, she starts off with Matt Smith, but it doesn't last that long. And then she still has 2 seasons with Capaldi.
Right.
But, I mean, I don't know. I agree that Capaldi's first season was weird because of everything that you said. And then in season 9 and 10, he's really what he is. He is his doctor, and this shows off better with Bill than it did with Clara.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what I think of Nardole. but we'll talk about him more specifically.
Right. It almost felt like there was a
relationship.
Yeah, there was almost no, like, it was just like he was like the butler, and he was kind of like, yeah, and he didn't even like seem to care about him. It was sort of like, oh, go do this for me, you know, which is kind of weird.
Which was funny in some sense, because I think you could see that it's not really what the Doctor thinks. He does care. It's just the way their relationships work.
Right.
Their relationship works as is in the right place. I guess, he was more established with his companions this season than before.
Right. And speaking of which, I think one aspect, you know, we said the Doctor didn't have a story, but he kind of did, in that this season was really about him trying to save Missy, the Master. And we've never had like an arc like that where the Doctor has a story that he's trying to do. And I thought that was an interesting thing, and it worked for me. It's weird given that I've seen the whole history of the Master. I mean, I've seen, you know, dozens of stories with him and the awful things he's done. But that's one thing they've always had right from the very beginning, is this, they are friends, and yet he does awful, awful things, or in this case, she does, you know? And I liked that little arc, which we'll get to more when we talk about Missy, but I liked from the Doctor's point of view how important it was for him. You know, that he took on, like, I'm going to save you and then keep you, and I'm now stuck on Earth watching you for all this time. Like, that's something we hadn't seen before, and I liked it.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about Nardole a bit later, but I felt like he didn't really have a character. It was more like almost an extension of the TARDIS, where Nardole is just something that the Doctor can order around and didn't really have agency. And with Bill, I really liked the professor-student relationship they had. It worked really well. And also, like, how Bill was really grounded in society, and, like, she's kind of the first companion that we have who has a commentary on society with her job at the university, but she's not a student, and how her experiences with race and homophobia, even though, as you mentioned in the notes, it's not, like, super present in the show, but she does mention it a few times, and it's more than has been done before.
Right.
So I feel like it was a good dynamic between her and the Doctor, where she's kind of showing him also, like, her experience with humans, and not just this, that there are different groups of humans, and each individual is special in a way that maybe the Doctor doesn't see, because he views all humans as just these great creatures that he loves, but maybe he doesn't have an eye for the particular struggles that different people can have.
But then you could say that, okay, 2 years ago he couldn't even tell the difference between who's attractive and who's not, or stuff like that. But yet he really did seem to have a real bond with Bill, and a real caring. And he really did pull that whole, you're my responsibility, you're my granddaughter almost, as well as mentor, as well as the professor thing. In many ways, I think Bill brought out all the aspects of him that were good that we didn't see in the first season.
Yeah, kind of.
I think that's a good point about Bill's job and her commentary on society, but it's actually true of other companions as well, even though they didn't necessarily have a commentary on society. But in TV shows, we see shows about doctors or lawyers, or, I mean, that's not the only shows that exist. But in my personal life, I'm still a student, and in academics and in physics, and I'm doing a lot of music as well. And so I guess I'm sometimes stuck in that little bubble of living in Paris, educated people. And I love that about Doctor Who, that most of the companions are just like these normal people. Like Bill is not a student at the university like you could have expected of another show. Rory was a nurse, but Amy wasn't clear. what her job was.
She was a kissogram in the first episode.
She's a kissogram.
And I mean, same with Rose and same with most of them, actually.
Right.
I mean, no, like Martha was studying to be a doctor and Clara was a teacher. But so, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is the companions have a good diversity too, which is always refreshing in a show to not see like super intelligent doctors or...
Right. Well,
I don't know.
I think it's always meant to be that contrast because you've got the super smart alien doctor who knows time travel and can pretty much put together anything to save the day in 5 minutes. And then you've got his companion who's the viewer's character. Who we're supposed to relate to. If we were off with them, we'd be like, what the hell is this, doctor? You know, what's going on? What are these aliens? Why are they shooting at us? What's going on here? And in fact, there's a joke a lot of companions make at conventions. They say, you know, the role of the companion has to have 4 lines. What is it, doctor? What is it, doctor? What is it? You know, like, that's all they do. Like, they're the ones who the doctor explains the story to, you know? But I think in the new modern Who, they've gotten a lot more agency, which I like. And, you know, we had some of it in classic Who, but particularly Bill, you know, Bill stands up there in that very first scene, you know, that was released. I don't know if any of you saw it before the season aired. They threw a little scene that was actually from the first episode of them seeing the Daleks and him trying to explain it to her. And she's like, what the hell is this? You know, why did you tell me about this? You know, and I like that about, you know, that's the companion role, but Bill took it like to a better extent, I think. One quick thing about the Doctor before we move on to Bill is his little blindness arc. That's like the first time anything like that has ever happened to the Doctor, and I thought it was kind of neat. And if anything, it gave us the, you know, Capaldi's Doctor's vulnerable side, which I liked.
Yeah, and also how he didn't want to admit it to Bill. That was also a really cute part of their relationship, was that he was trying to stay strong and pretend everything was okay, just so that she wouldn't worry.
Right. That was powerful.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah, it was a good idea. That was a good thing to do.
So let's move on to Bill, since we're already pretty much talking about her, because she is, you know, the other main character, Nardole sort of like thrown in. She's our audience participation, you know, our point of view, our POV character, if we're going to use Song of Ice and Fire. You know, some people liked her, some people didn't, but I think she was like super likable. What do you think?
Definitely. Yeah, I loved her.
Yeah, I mean, from the first episode, I think she was really great, you know? And we got, like, more of a story with her than we've gotten with a lot of companions, in that, I mean, we had that little backstory with her mother that became a big deal. And, I mean, she had the little dating thing with Heather in the first episode, and then she went on a date in a couple of other episodes, and, you know, stuff like that. So we actually got kind of a story with her, which was kind of cool.
We kind of had that with Clara when she was with Danny Pink.
Right.
And she was trying to have a relationship, but it all went to shit. And in this arc, I feel like there's a little more positivity, which is better. She goes on dates, and it seems like it's not really working out because the Doctor keeps interrupting her dates. Or
it's kind of neat. Neat idea.
Random historical figures keep interrupting her dates.
Is that the Pope? Is that the Pope? Do you have the Pope in your bedroom?
But she does have a happy ending with that, because she gets to be with Heather.
Well, after the tragic ending, but...
After the tragic ending. With
super tragic, which we'll get to, yeah.
Yeah.
You know? So can you tell me, because I'm not sure I remember well, like the feeling I have with the story arc with her mother is that is that I didn't understand it, or that it was unresolved. So what was it exactly? Like,
she died when she was young, and she didn't really get to know her, but then the Doctor went back and went through time, I guess, and found some pictures of her and gave it to her so she could remember her. And then that became, ironically, the denouement of one of the major story arc of the mid-season, you know, because she remembered her mother, and that became what saved the day. But I like, you know, I mean, she had like a stepmother which was kind of weird because she only appeared in like one episode, I think. you know, and so it was kind of weird. I feel like they were like throwing ideas about her out and then like moving on a little too quickly, but that's Moffat in a nutshell, I think. But, you know, he did like, you know, first we have like a stepmother and, you know, she helps her like when she moves into the house and then we kind of don't see her again. And then she's like remembering her real mother and then she saves the day and then we never hear about that again, which is, you know, kind of Moffat-y, but.
Yeah. Moffat-y.
Right?
That's a funny adjective.
It's kind of what I think of Moffat as a whole. He just throws a million ideas at the wall. He has so many great ideas, but he doesn't have time to let any of them kind of sink in enough. Or some of them. The other thing I thought was weird is that, okay, so we have, you know, a historic thing. We have the first openly LGBT character on the show that's a continuing, I mean, unless you count Captain Jack, who was in a few episodes here and there.
Yeah.
Well, you could argue for Clara. Clara was bisexual.
Well, Clara...
She doesn't say it outright.
Here's the thing, like, Clara was bi in the way that, like, straight men like bi women. I like men, but I'll kiss women because you think it's hot. That's kind of how I feel, like, that's kind of Moffat-y, too. You know, it's like, oh, look at this hot, sassy girl. She'll even kiss women. Like, I kind of felt like that's how Clara's bisexuality was handled. She'd make a snarky comment like, ooh, I kissed her. But it was never, like, dealt with, you know? Whereas it was dealt with here. You know, you've got your people on the internet complaining about agendas and about how, like, it was the whole point of her character and it's pushing an agenda on us and all that stuff. But I felt it was handled well. Yes, she brings it up, like, when guys flirt with her, but you know what? If you're a lesbian in this world and men are coming on to you, what better way to shove it down than to say, stop assuming, leave me alone, I'm a dyke. You know?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I don't think it feels like it's pushing an agenda or something, because she is a fully rounded character with a lot of different interests and capabilities, and being a lesbian isn't the only trait that she has, and that's what makes her a great character in the show, is that not only is she a well-rounded character, but she's also an LGBT character who's really a representation for LGBT people on the show, instead of just being a token, kind of like Clara saying, I kissed Jane Austen a couple times.
Right. Isn't that hot?
Yeah, I agree. It didn't feel like, it felt like it was just her character, like that's who she is. She just happens to be a lesbian. That's not like, hey, see, we put LGBT characters on. No, that wasn't what it felt like. So yeah, they addressed it in a good way, definitely.
You know, and it seemed a lot of people feel like it was pushed, but characters do date. In the real world, people date. And if she dates,
like other companions have dated in the past,
they made some people argued like, oh, it was brought up in every episode. Well, I mean, can you name an episode like that Rory was in that wasn't about his love for Amy? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Did he even have any character traits that weren't his love for Amy? I mean, so is he like an agenda on us? I mean, like...
He's there to push love on us.
He's the straight guy agenda.
Right? I mean, you know, like, right? So, I mean, you know, every character, that's part of Modern Who, is that these are real characters that have potential love life, that have interest outside the adventures in time and space, and they're real people. And I like that about the new show. We didn't get that very much in the old show. Like, we had Sarah Jane was a reporter, but most of the other characters, they had this was my job beforehand, but it's never mentioned again. I like that about the new show, that these are real people. You know, I like the idea that, hey, they don't just disappear and then never come back and leave their family behind. They come back and visit, and, you know, and that's what you would do. Would you? Yes, the Doctor takes you off into time and space, but you wouldn't just say, okay, I'm never going to talk to my mom and dad again, or my sister, or my boyfriend, or my, you know, my cousin, my best friend. I'm not just going to leave everyone forever. I'd be like, especially when you have a time and space machine, let's go back and let's have the best of both worlds. We can still have our friends and run away from the Daleks.
Yeah.
But although I did think it was a little weird that we go back in Victorian times and no one cares that she's black. I think on some level they were trying to make history a little cooler than it really was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there were black people in Victorian London as well. So I didn't feel like it was such an unusual thing.
But would they have been treated with respect and like she was and, whatever? Which, I mean, I guess on some level you don't want to make the whole show about it. But at the same time, I think...
Well, then you could also argue that when Martha shows up in Elizabeth in London wearing jeans,
right?
She would have been treated weirdly, but she wasn't.
Right,
so...
which she should have been. But that's kind of my point.
Me,
but yeah.
Doctor Who is kind of about suspending disbelief for those kinds of things.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It just, there were a few moments where I was just like, And they did try to address it in the text when they were like, when they were like, oh, there really are more black people here than I expected, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it seemed a little pushed, but it was okay because they're trying to do the right thing, and that was fine. You don't want the whole show to be about Bill goes somewhere and then she's like thrown into chains,
Yeah, I guess the show is in some sense a commentary on society. It does express the idea that the Doctor is just all tolerance, and then but it's not about going back to the past and having a long episode about how Bill is not accepted in Victorian London. It's just not what it is. So, and it's also like a family show, and I mean, I guess... You
don't want to be a whole downer episode about, like, slavery or something. But although I think it would be powerful to do that. In fact, Big Finish Audios just did one where they went in the past and Colin Baker's Doctor meets slave owners. And it was actually pretty powerful.
It would be, I agree, but I also think that they can't have that issue brought up every time they go back in the past with a black character.
Right. And especially with 43-minute episodes, you kind of have to move on. Speaking of which, how about Nardole? So one of the things that I think is interesting about this character is it not really obvious that he was not originally meant to be in the entire season? He originally was only going to be in a few episodes, and then they liked him so much, and frankly, they didn't think they could get him for the whole season. And he's been a Doctor Who fan forever, so he was totally, yes, I'll do any episode you let me in. And so they added him in to the whole season, but it seemed really obvious. For instance, he's barely in the first 5 episodes until they kind of, okay, we've got him now, and the writers now know, okay, here's who he is and what we got to do with him. He starts off as just kind of like the butler.
I felt like he didn't really have a role to start with, and he was just there.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only companion who we don't have a here's how I joined the TARDIS story.
Yeah.
We saw him in the Christmas special 2 years ago with River Song, and then he was left in a robot, and then it's just mentioned, oh yeah, I picked you up, and this is why, now be my butler. But that happened like weeks ago. It's kind of weird, we never get his like, hey, welcome to the TARDIS.
My thought was something more sinister, and I was completely wrong. Well, it was River Song telling him to save the Master, that story, and I just thought that it could have been he was maybe sent there by a future Master.
Ooh,
maybe that'll come up later, I don't know.
That would actually make him more interesting, because I feel like he's kind of not really a companion, but also not really a secondary character. Yeah. He's kind of in between, where he's always there, but doesn't really have a personality or a role to play other than just being a sidekick.
I think once he really goes off on missions and does stuff, he gets more interesting. Once he gets like lines, once he gets to do more than just, hey, go back to the TARDIS and push this button and do this and get some tea for us. He did get more. Like, I loved his bit, like, no, I'm not bald. I just have invisible hair. That stuff I liked. And I liked his whole, machismo kind of, which I think is funny. I love the idea of like a gay man being like this macho lady killer, which was kind of cool. In real life he's gay, the actor, but him playing this whole I'm sexy, everyone loves me, and probably is true, actually. You believe him, don't you? I think I mean, he definitely was very often the comic relief, but I think once they gave him things to do, like I like that he was the first one to figure out that they were in a virtual reality.
Yeah.
In the Monk storyline. So he started to get interesting, and then in the end you could argue he saved the day in the finale, he saved those people and all that. So once they figured out what to do with him, I liked him, but at the beginning it's kind of like, why is he here? What's the point? Other than you've got a great actor and you get to use him, so you're happy, which is kind of what it's felt like.
It could have been a role that they could have given to either Bill or the Doctor in either case.
Right.
Either figuring out the simulation or saving the people at the end. I don't feel like he brought a lot to the story.
Until the end, though. In the last two-parter, obviously he had more of a role and he had an actual story. But yeah, I guess I agree.
Well, even in Oxygen and in the Monk story, once they figured out okay, we've got this guy, let's use him. Then they started figuring, okay, so now what do we actually want to do with him? And then they kind of did. But it took way too long, and by the time it was already time for him to go. So it was weird.
Yeah, definitely.
So how about Missy? This is a new one. We have a villain recurring character, but is she a villain or
Missy is awesome.
Right?
She's so great.
Right? Who would have thought we'd say that?
Oh, yeah, was already to be great fair, before.
Was it obvious to you she was in the vault?
The Master is already great.
Right.
The Tennant era.
In all the eras, to be honest. All of them. I've seen them all.
I haven't seen all of them. But
even the Big Finish audio-only Masters are awesome. So they're all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michelle Gomez is just so funny.
Right. I know it was very controversial.
I feel like she actually is Missy in real life.
Yeah. Right?
When you see interviews of her.
Were you surprised?
Have you ever seen Bad Education?
I have not.
No.
Is she good?
Oh, okay. It's a comedy show, and she is also very similar in that.
Did you think it was obvious that it was her in the vault? Did you know? Did you figure it out, or was that a surprise?
Nope, I'm stupid when I watch a show. I just wait for revelations to come. I don't think about it beforehand.
That's fine.
I actually did. I'm usually so stupid and I figured things out at the last moment. But from the start, when we find out about the vault, I had a suspicion that it was Missy.
Right. I felt like it probably was her, but then thought, were they going to do something that obvious? And they did, which surprised me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually surprised, though, that it was revealed so early. It was, not even halfway through the season, so that was nice. They didn't just milk it.
Well, I thought it was... I figured out it was Master, but also with the whole Nerdle thing, I thought it was going to be a sort of callback to the Pandorica episode.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been good. That would have been neat. But they didn't.
Yeah, I agree with you, David, that it wouldn't have worked for me if they had waited longer to reveal who was in the vault, because it's not a good trope, just having this big, oh my god, there's a vault, who is in there for the whole season. That just doesn't work.
I think he let that mystery hang just long enough. It was just right. Yeah. Plus, by doing it earlier, that gave us more of Missy through most of the season. She was in over half the season, which was great.
Yeah, it would have been too much of a shame to not have her throughout the season.
Did you buy her going good? Do you think that if she hadn't been killed by herself or her previous self, do you think she would have been a good guy now? Do you think she would have helped the Doctor now? Or do you think when she left, that was her true self? What do you think?
Well, that would be a shame.
If she was good?
And
if she became good?
Yeah.
Or if she was bad?
The Master also has a history of getting killed and then not being dead afterwards.
Right. There'll be another Master at some point. So, it may not be immediately, but there will be. She said she's done with it, so... But then again, so did her predecessor, so... Which is a nice little segue. How did you like that whole Two Masters thing? Was that awesome? By the way, that is the very first time it's ever been done on the show, Two Masters. It's been done in a Big Finish audio, but it's never been done on the show. And it was awesome.
I thought it was awesome.
Yep.
Yep. Me too. I loved it.
Yeah.
Was the whole Sim Master fancying her, was that a little creepy? Is that narcissism?
It was both creepy and narcissistic, and so the Master.
Right? It was
so in character.
Creepy.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. It was very in character.
Remember the Tennant episode where everyone in the world became him?
Exactly.
Yeah,
and what did you think? Was that? I have to say, it was weird and it was sad because the Doctor never finds out that she went good for him, and probably never will. But what an appropriate end that the two of them killed each other. It was perfect.
Yeah. And also, I felt like whether she's good or not doesn't really matter to Capaldi's Doctor, because he's just intent on treating people like people, and especially when he's keeping her in the vault, he does feel like he's also protecting her and doing his duty to his fellow Time Lords and his whole race.
But at the same time, he wanted so badly to prove himself right and to show that she could be what he wanted her to be. And he did. He succeeded, and he'll never know. That's the most tragic part of all, I think, is that he won. He turned the bad guy good. How many superheroes can say that? Lex Luthor never goes good for, more than an episode. And he did it.
Is it really, really the most tragic thing?
Maybe not as tragic as Bill.
Yeah.
But it was tragic for the Doctor. You have to remember that he's known this person for 2,000 years. He's known many incarnations of him, and they've always fought. It's that awful thing where, okay, your best friend's a mass murderer, but he's still your best friend. How do you deal with that? If you found out your best friend was a Nazi, what do you do then? You can't like them anymore, but you do still. And it's like, it's weird. And that's his situation. Because the Master has killed trillions of people. Trillion. Entire universes he's destroyed. And, not universes, galaxies. And that's horrible. And on some level, you should never forgive that. But yet, that's the Doctor in a nutshell. And if anything, Capaldi in a nutshell, that he does, and he still tries. And several Doctors, even the third Doctor, when the first time the Master was captured and thrown in jail, John Pertwee's Doctor visits him in jail and stops and just sits and talks with him and brings him books to read, and cares about him. And that's, I think, the one thing that's been solid through their relationship all through all their history. And he did it! And he'll never know. That, to me, is what's so tragic.
I feel like Capaldi's Doctor is more a forgiving Doctor, and he would probably do the same thing again, even if he didn't know the outcome. Whereas, for example, Matt Smith would be kind of vengeful or disappointed if he found out that it didn't work. Even Tennant, there's this kind of...
Once you've crossed that line, I gave you your chance. Gave you your chance. Remember the Family of Blood. I gave you your chance. You blew it. You're done now. You get what you get.
But I don't think the 12th Doctor is like that.
That's one of the things I like about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so anything else on these characters? Because let's kind of move into the episodes otherwise. We'll start quickly with not this year's Christmas special, but the previous Christmas special, The Return of Dr. Mysterio. Written by Stephen Moffat, the Doctor has unwittingly given a kid superpowers, and he becomes a superhero later on. Together they stop an alien invasion and help that hero find love. So what do you think? Superheroes on Doctor Who, did it work?
No. I hated this episode. It was terrible.
Oh, I loved that episode.
It was okay. It was weird. It was just weird.
I liked it.
I'm a comic fan, so I kind of liked it. But then the superhero as Nanny was weird, although it was a neat twist, which I kind of liked. And I liked the actor and the actress, and their love story was neat, but weird. But weird.
Yeah.
The alien plot seemed kind of completely superficial, right?
Yeah, I don't remember it at all.
Right. I mean,
remember
you could just fill in the aliens. I remember they zippered their faces. That's about the only thing I remember about them, because it was a neat visual.
Don't even remember that.
Right. And and Nardole gets reintroduced with a line. Oh, yeah, I went and got you. I don't even think we even got the explanation until this season. We just brought him back and oh, yeah, here he is. Whatever. But playing the butler role.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't really have any memory of that episode, but reading the summary made me think, yeah, I like that. I remember liking it. I remember enjoying it. I remember enjoying the love story. So, yeah, I loved it.
Well,
it didn't really do anything for me.
And isn't that what I think the Christmas specials generally are? You have the ones where it's the last Doctor story. We had Tennant's last story. And those are a little more deep. But in general, they're meant to be light, fluffy. You can't have mass murder happening in a Christmas special, You can't have you can't go dark and gritty. You kind of have to be really light and fluffy and fun. And kind of almost every Christmas special has been like that.
Yeah, not all of them,
I liked The Runaway Bride.
Not all, but most.
That was a bit different. The Runaway Bride. The first one with Captain Tate in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're all
even that was pretty light.
Really.
I thought that was pretty light too. Even
but the one, it's a Matt Smith one with the forest and the family and the dad who died in the war, and that one was actually kind of dark at first.
Right, but then it had the light, happy endings.
Yeah, obviously. I think they're all different, but I agree with you that they have good endings and they are mostly about good feelings.
Probably the only exception, I think, would be the Christmas Carol, the Matt Smith one, where the love interest is going to die and she has like a few days left, and this kid gets old. He tries to save it and he gets old, never telling her he loves her. Like, that was pretty dark in a lot of ways. That's actually probably my favorite of all the Christmas specials, too. Yeah,
it was great, but it was sad and dark, yeah. Right. I really think they're all different.
Right. But in general, they tend to be pretty light, and that's clearly what he was going for with this, and he succeeded. It was fun, you enjoyed it, and then next week you forgot about it completely, right? Next we have the pilot, which is the pilot of the season too, so double entendre name there. So the Doctor meets and starts to tutor university student Bill, who meets a girl who ends up becoming the pilot of an alien spaceship. The girl follows her around the universe until Bill convinces her to let her go. Bill stops the Doctor from wiping her memory. It's kind of a reboot of the series, isn't it? I mean, we get a basic introduction to what Doctor Who is. It's a good jumping on point for new viewers. And we get the new companion, who I fell in love with right away. What about you?
Yep, same.
I mean, the plot of the story is almost irrelevant. This is the story of Bill.
Yeah, and
don't you think?
Like, picking up with the Doctor, where we don't really know what he's been up to these past couple of years, or a couple dozen years.
Right. We get the beginning of the vault thing, but only the hint of it.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I thought was really bizarre, though, is that while they're running away through time and space from the water creature, from Heather, basically, we had the Daleks appear. And the only time they appear in the season is in this tiny little cameo role, which actually was part of the scene that they used to introduce Bill on the internet. They released a scene from it. And they actually filmed that long before the episode, by the way. It was kind of weird. If you're going to bring the Daleks in and pay this estate of the creator of the Daleks, you'd think you'd do something with them, but they kind of didn't. But there is one little callback in there as an old classic Who fan I have to bring in, which is, I don't know if you remember, they had these black aliens in silver clothes with dreadlocks. Those are creatures called the Movellans, and back in 1979, they appeared in a classic Who episode with the Daleks as the Daleks' ultimate enemies. They were actually robots that were so smart that they could fight the Daleks fairly, and they were kind of at a standstill. And for the next few Dalek stories, we had mentions of them trying to get ahead in this war with them, with the Movellans. They never appeared again. They haven't appeared since 1979. They were just in a Big Finish audio, and I think they were in a book or two, and that's it. And it was in such a little cameo, like in the background as they're running by. But for old school fans like me went, oh my god, it's Movellans! Oh my god, squee!
I think that's one of the many great things about Doctor Who and this reboot is that for classic fans, it's still very enjoyable and you have these little nitpicks that you can enjoy. And for us, it's just, weird aliens in the background.
Right. You know, and you don't care.
It doesn't feel
and there's a few of those this season.
It doesn't feel like some fan service that we can't understand or anything like that.
Even if it is.
Even if it is.
Was there anything about this story? I mean, it was kind of neat. It was creepy, the whole, the dripping. I mean, on some level, it kind of reused the whole, Waters of Mars with the dripping people. But it worked. It was creepy. It worked. It wasn't too deep.
Creepy water horror is creepy.
It's always good, right?
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, the love story's kind of weird because they had 2 conversations in their entire relationship, and now we're gonna live happily ever after with her. That's kind of weird, but that's Moffat, I guess.
Yep.
Okay, so now we move on to emoji bots, aka Smile. Bill's first journey in the TARDIS is to one of Earth's first colonized planets, where they are greeted by emoji bots and a swarm of nanobots who try to kill them and the awakening humans in a confused attempt to take away their grief and pain. Did we like these emoji bots? What do you think?
The setting kind of reminded me of the episodes we had on New Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And New York. I just don't know. I did probably New York. New Earth. Even though they didn't have really anything in common. I think the idea was interesting of these emoji bots. Weird things.
It seemed to me too much like, hey, look how cool we are. We know emojis. We've turned them into an alien. Like, it seemed to me like an older men saying, see, look, we're cool. You know, I mean...
Like,
right?
Your dad sends you emojis
right.
by text.
Right? Like, and now I've turned him into an alien.
Sorry, Dad, if you ever listen to this.
Right? Yeah. And
yeah, I thought it worked pretty well because it was not just to be cute, but it was also a really creepy thing.
Right.
Actually.
And it was neat when they turned them creepy.
Yeah.
I don't remember much about it. Like, I remember there was some deeper story with, like, you know, the kid and humanity and whatever, but I vaguely remember.
Well, they found some bones.
Right.
As the thing was smiling at them, and they had to continue smiling, and that was...
Right.
That was funny.
That's the moment that I remember the most. Where
it's a funny scene, isn't it?
It's both funny and also really scary because they're just finding out that everyone was killed and they have to keep smiling.
Yeah, but Capaldi was great in that.
I feel like, to me, this was Doctor Who by the number. Okay, we're going to go to the future. We're going to put some creepy aliens in. We'll make it kind of cool. And
it's Doctor Who bingo.
Exactly. We'll hit all the points. But there's nothing about this that made me go, wow, this was really good. There was no point I went, this is bad, or I hate this, or this is stupid.
Yeah.
But this was decidedly average Doctor Who to me. Which is, I guess, fine for, you know, Bill's first trip.
I mean, you have to have average Doctor Who episodes.
You could, they could all be great.
The next episode is also kind of like that. It's kind of the average Doctor Who goes into the past.
So Thin Ice is, as you just said, the Doctor and Bill arrive at a frost fair on a frozen Thames River in 1814 London. They foil the plans of a local businessman who has enslaved a massive creature. And it's Bill's first historical story.
1814. It's not even Victorian times yet.
Yeah, no, it's before that.
Yeah,
I know we've kind of covered this already in what we said earlier, but just in the Victoria show, they deal with the issue of slavery and how it was in the society at the time. So I do think that, there weren't that many black people in London at that time, and it was kind of a weird sight.
Well, it would depend from where, because the class system was a little bizarre, where some people from some places would be higher than the standard working class in Britain, whereas some others would be below it. Seems like they just made it up randomly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it was definitely like kind of a happy view of the past.
Yeah.
Like happy poverty. Do we really want a like detailed story about how these kids were actually starving? Do we really want that in this story about an alien? I will say this, it struck me a little too much like that Matt Smith story where there was the whale in space. It would seem a little too close to that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Did you
where
like
they spend the whole episode wondering, like, what could it be? It's actually a giant alien whale-like creature.
Did you like it, or was it? To me, this is again decidedly average. It wasn't bad. It was fine. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I wasn't offended in any way, or upset, or bored.
I mean,
but,
I always like when they go back into the past. I like historical episodes.
Yeah, me too.
One thing I would like to see is a historical story that doesn't involve aliens. I'd love to see, and they did this in Classic Who, really only in the first and second Doctor eras. There was one, like, fifth Doctor story, and that's it. But I would love to see a story where they just go back in time, and they meet Shakespeare or whoever, and there aren't aliens there.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
You know, they get stuck in, like there was a story in the Hartnell era where they get stuck in the French Revolution. And there were no bad guys. It was just, I mean, there were, but they were like, the French.
The actual,
And those were neat stories, and I like those, and I kind of wish they would do that at least once or twice in modern Who, and they really kind of haven't.
Yeah, because in everything we've had, it's dire wolves or giant wasps.
Ghosts,
yeah.
No, I'm a ghost. It's a
Vampires.
dire wolf.
Yeah.
You said dire wolf. I'm like ghost.
Werewolves, yeah.
Ghost is okay on Doctor Who. Ghost can cross over into Doctor Who anytime he wants.
Knock, knock.
Knock, knock. So this is one that was kind of meant to be a big one, and let's see what we think of it. Bill rents a new home with 5 friends from a mysterious landlord. Creepiness ensues as the friends disappear after mysterious knocks. Bug-like creatures have been keeping the landlord's mother alive. Did the horror work for this? Like, it started off really creepy, and I really liked it, and then midway through I lost it. What'd you think?
It was kind of the same for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
same.
premise was really interesting, but then the conclusion is kind of eh.
The first half was really good, and then they just kind of lost it, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
They went into this huge scientific explanation that we kind of didn't need.
I don't even remember the scientific explanation.
Well, remember, they were like
bug-like
alien
things.
bugs, and it turned out that the mother was really the daughter. Whatever. It created great atmosphere, and then didn't know where to go with it.
Yeah. I remember really enjoying it at first because of the whole, these are 5 friends renting a new home, and the doctor just crashes there and crashes the party, and that's really fun. Like,
and it was.
The way Bill is like, "Why are you here?" and she's almost like everyone finds him funny, but she's kind of like, "Oh,
go away.
I'm with my friends.
Please
right
go
now.
Go away, Dad.
Please go away.
Go away, Grandpa." No, I'm not your grandpa. I'm your dad.
That was really, really good and really funny, and then the rest of it was not so good.
Yeah, perfect example of a great idea that ruined. Do you know an interesting thing with this? They released a version of this that had what they call binaural hearing, where if you listen to it in headphones, they somehow set up like virtual 3D so that you'd hear it like above you and below you, and you'd hear the knocks in all different directions.
Ooh,
Which
creepy.
was a neat idea, except that the knocks kind of ended halfway through the episodes.
Yeah.
Like the story, basically, the plot. We'll come up on one of my favorites of the season, oxygen. So the TARDIS crew land on a space station in the future where oxygen is an important commodity. The spacesuits and their zombie inhabitants attack them and the crew of the station. While saving the day, the Doctor goes blind. And also notable, because this is really the first story where Nardole actually does something. Besides get tea. Like, he's really part of the cast in this episode, which was nice.
Yeah.
What do you think? Did you like it?
Yeah, I did enjoy that one. Maybe mostly because the Doctor goes blind. I feel like the stakes were a little bit higher, where you really did have doubts about how it was going to end. I felt like I couldn't really predict the outcome from the start of the episode, whereas the house with the 5 friends moving in, it never really felt like they were in danger. But on
And they even had their happy ending.
spaceship where they run out of oxygen, that was a little more tense.
With alien zombie spacesuits.
Yeah.
Or human zombie spacesuits. I don't know.
Yeah, and also the fact that it was all brought about by sort of a cost reduction scheme where they were trying to make it the most efficient possible, and they ended up killing people because they didn't have enough oxygen for everybody. It's the kind of political commentary that makes you think about real life and how capitalism could actually end up killing us all. But I digress.
Yeah.
I guess that's maybe the point why where I didn't really like it. That's not really the kind of thing that I really want to see on Doctor Who. On the other hand, it felt claustrophobic, that this whole we're not gonna have enough oxygen. But I'm not sure I can say much more about it because I think in my mind it's being confused with basically any other spaceship episode. So.
Yeah. I mean, basically we got zombies in space that were from capitalism. I thought the zombies in space were creepy. I was actually really nervous for Bill there at the end there. I thought there was a chance they might actually do something here. And I liked the political commentary, but I thought it was just a touch heavy-handed. Yeah. Okay, maybe very heavy-handed. I mean, sarcastic.
It's Doctor Who. It's going to be...
Ironically, I have read that somebody used a similar sort of concept for solving global warming, in which the reason air gets polluted is because nobody's figured out how to make a market for air.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, they did. Except on a spaceship.
Just saying, zombies in space coming from Capitalism
Yep.
might be a good episode title. Just
Right? Zombie capitalists in space. And, of course, we do get the Doctor going blind, which continues on for at least, 3 more episodes?
Yeah, well...
which is one of the first times...
Yeah.
Right, through the whole monk story. So that was neat. We actually had consequences to a story, even if he did fix it. Well, he did fix it, but,
Exciting.
Okay, so now we've got... We'll talk about him individually, but you almost have to talk about him as a trio because we've got the 3-part story that kind of fit together: Extremis, the Pyramid at the End of the World, and The Lie of the Land. It's sort of a 3-parter, but unlike most continuing stories, they're all a little different. They all tell completely different stories, which I thought was kind of neat. And one of the interesting things is Steve Moffat said that the reason... You know why he did this 3-parter? Because in the middle of the seasons, the ratings always drop. Everyone wants to see the beginning, everyone wants to see the end, but kind of in the middle, people lose interest. They watch it and binge it later or whatever. So he decided to do this big 3-parter to kind of keep people excited, and in fact, they were the lowest rated episodes of the season. So it was a nice attempt, but it failed miserably.
Too bad.
Yeah, well, actually, for me, it kind of worked because... up until episode 5, I was kind of indifferent to the episodes. They kind of felt generic and not as engaging as other seasons. But the fact that this story picked up in the middle of the season and overarched over 3 episodes, it kept me interested, and I don't know if I would have finished the season if all the episodes had been like the first few.
Well, so Moffat's idea worked on you.
It did.
Let's start with Extremis. In a flashback, the Doctor saves Missy from execution, promising to keep her safely locked away in the vault. So we get the solution there to who's in the vault. The Doctor is asked by the Pope to investigate a text called the Veritas, which has caused everyone who has read it to commit suicide in the middle of Bill trying to have a date. In the investigations, the TARDIS crew eventually realize that they are computer-generated characters in a virtual simulation of the world. The Doctor realizes that the alien monks are trying to learn about Earth and the Doctor before invading, and the virtual Doctor sends a message to the real Doctor to warn him. So this was weird. Did you have any idea that this was a virtual world thing? That was that was bizarre. No. And I think it kind of worked, but it was weird.
I don't really like episodes where we're being lied to the whole time. And then there's this big reveal like, aha, it was actually virtual something. It was one of the things I probably don't enjoy really with Moffat. It's the Doctor saving himself kind of thing. It's not quite a time paradox this time, but it's still the same kind of convoluted story and solution.
Which, by the way, makes it only the 2nd episode of Doctor Who without the actual Doctor or any of the companions. Because if you think about it, all the characters we saw were simulations. So the Doctor doesn't appear in this episode.
Is the first a classic Who?
Yeah, 3rd season. It was a prequel to a 12-part Dalek story. They did a prequel where the Daleks take over this planet called Mission of the Unknown. This spy is trying to find out about the Daleks and ends up getting killed by them, and it's the prequel. And none of the main cast were in it. It kind of gave them all a week's vacation, basically. Because back then they did like 42 episodes a year, believe it or not. Can you imagine? Although they were half the episodes they are now, but still, like a lot. So they had to find excuses in Classic Who to give them a week off, like the Doctor gets knocked out in one episode because he goes on vacation, in real life. But so only the 2nd time that's happened, although in this case you actually had the actors in it. It was neat. Yeah. I liked it. I thought it worked, but it was weird. I like the idea of a 3-parter where all 3 parts are different and not continuing.
Yeah.
The Doctor sends a message to himself, although does he really get it? Does it work?
That felt quite unresolved to me. I have this feeling that this was this big thing in this episode and the whole thing about the Veritas. And then it's actually something else, and the Doctor sends a message to himself, and we don't really know if that had any impact. Like, did this episode have any impact on what happens next? I mean, yes, it has. I mean, it presents the
well, he tells Bill to go on a date, but because of it, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Why don't we move into the next one, and then we'll talk about how they continue. So we have the Pyramid of the End of the World. The monks reveal themselves and reveal that they have seen the end of humanity, but can save them if humanity consents. The Doctor stops the biochemical disaster, but he doesn't save himself. Bill consents to let the monks rule to save the Doctor. So there was a lot going on in this episode, and it seemed to be bouncing around everywhere. We have biochemical disaster on one end. We've got personal stuff between Bill and the Doctor going on. We've got the Doctor pretending not to be blind. We've got the 3 major Earth people who somehow they let a general speak for the entire United States, which is kind of weird, and China and Russia. Like, what? Like, that whole political shit was just weird to me. Huh? Oh, and what
there's
what
no
country
way
is,
this would actually,
Right, what country is this supposed to be that we're all about to go to war over? I don't know.
Yeah.
It was weird. But the monks were creepy. I gotta say, I liked the monks themselves.
Yeah. The monks are kind of a reboot of the Silence.
Yeah, they did kind of remind me of them.
Yeah.
Which we should have seen more of, and we never did.
They scared me too much. I'm okay that we didn't see them more.
Yeah.
The monks were never quite that creepy, but...
Nope.
Although, it was weird the way... Did you notice the way, like, they're talking, but their mouths didn't move the same way? That was weird. That creeped me out, actually.
Again, because I'm teleported predictions, I thought that they could have been the Time Lords, but...
yeah. But no.
You know, on a final regeneration sort of thing.
That could be good. Maybe, well, we may see them again. You never know. You never know. Could be just a one-time monster, or maybe we'll see him again. I mean, they were in 3 parts, which is already more than most monsters have been in.
Yeah.
I guess all of these Earth invasion episodes start to kind of blend in my memory, which I guess it's kind of inevitable with Doctor Who. It's that it does repeat itself in some sense, even though they keep coming up with new ideas, and it's still enjoyable and it's still great. But at some point, some episodes just blur into each other.
Yeah. Although we did get a little bit here, this whole biochemical disaster happening. So we got a little, like, pseudo-political commentary there as well. And so that was kind of...
There was everything at once in that episode.
Yeah, it was Moffat. Just throw lots of ideas into one, and maybe we'll get to one of them at some point. So let's move on to the next episode, The Lie of the Land. The monks rule the earth and have telepathically convinced everyone that they've always helped humanity, guiding human development. Nardole helps Bill find the Doctor, who appears to be helping the monks. When she's convinced that it's not a trick, she shoots the Doctor, seemingly causing him to regenerate, but it was a ruse and a test. The Doctor and Bill break the monks' telepathic control over humanity by replacing them in people's memories with Bill's mother. Missy expresses remorse over those she has killed. So, this was interesting. We got almost a parallel universe story here. The aliens have won, and they've actually always been here, or so they're making everyone believe.
Yeah, I thought that part of the episode was really really compelling. Like, you could see Bill fighting with this telepathic thing, and fighting to remember and fighting to hang on what she knew to be true, and that was well written, well acted, well filmed. That worked really well.
Yeah, it's really Bill's story in a lot of ways, right? I mean, she's great in this. Kind of like Turn Left, which was really all about, it was all the companion story. That was one of my favorite stories ever. And that was just her story.
Let me Google it.
Do you remember? Okay.
It's the one in which the Doctor dies at like the very beginning.
Right.
Because Donna turns left.
Mm-hmm. It's Donna's story completely, and it was awesome.
And it's what the world would be like without the Doctor.
Right.
Isn't it? Yeah, Rose comes back in that episode.
She does. No? She does.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. I remember now. And Donna has this weird alien stuck on her back. Is that it?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
It was neat, though.
And the Doctor's companions slowly run out.
Yeah. It's just a story where we get to really tell the story from the point of view of the companion, and she gets to save the day, too. So, hey. It was a good one. Were you fooled? I gotta say, I liked that whole, did the Doctor really side with the monks? You know, when he starts to say, well, they're right. You people have all screwed it up. I'd like to think that the Doctor's not that callous, but at the same time, he's kind of right. I could almost see it in a weird, since they did win and they could control everything, that maybe they did convince the Doctor. Did you buy it or no?
I felt uncomfortable with it. Like, no, that cannot be. In that sense, I didn't really buy it, because what would it mean for the rest of the story?
Right.
Well, that's why I thought they could be Time Lords, as in they'd be capable of defeating him. So, how'd you play
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Bill buys it and shoots him, and then we get the fake regeneration. They're not playing too hard this season with the whole, hey, we know Capaldi's regenerating, so we're going to tease it all freaking season.
Yeah.
I was actually kind of, if they hadn't put it in the freaking, the coming attractions for the episode, I think it would have kind of been a really shocking moment. But with it in the coming attraction, it's like, no, they wouldn't reveal this. If they really were going to regenerate it mid-season, they wouldn't reveal it in the coming attraction.
Yeah, agreed.
But still, it was compelling at the time. She just shot the Doctor. Oh my God. Wait, is he What? I mean, I definitely was, I wasn't fooled, but I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, you kind of know what to expect, but it still makes you doubt a little bit when it's happening.
And we got some resolution to the story of Bill's mother here, where she remembers her, and then her memories of her kind of go on to all humanity and save the day, which was a little corny, but at the same time kind of sweet.
I mean, when is Doctor Who not that?
Right. Well, that I said, it still sound kind of sweet. It was kind of a Deus Ex Machina in a lot of ways, but isn't that always on Doctor Who? Yeah. I mean, the Doctor makes a machine at the end that saves the day, except this time it took Bill instead of him. Yeah. But I like that Bill got the moment to do it, and she was willing to, sacrifice herself, and it turned out she didn't have to. Surprise, surprise. But so overall,
Wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah, I know. Right? Shocking. You thought the monks were really going to take over Earth for the rest of Doctor Who, right?
Obviously, yeah.
And Bill was going to be a miserable failure and die in shame.
Exactly.
Her mind would just get blown out, and that'll be the end of her. Well, we kind of did get that at the end of the season.
Actually, I would quite like.
Yeah.
I would quite like sort of like just a Doctor traveling around space and time just with this sort of decrepit monk thing.
Overall, we had a trilogy here. Did you like any part of it better? Did you like the trilogy? Was it a mess? I'll say this, it got a lot of bad reviews online, and a lot of fans thought it was the worst episodes of the season. I liked them. I'm one of the few. I mean, I don't think they were brilliant. I liked them actually even a little more than some of the standalone episodes earlier in the season, like you just said a little bit ago, Alex. But what else do you think of these?
Yeah.
I think it was overtly political.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Well, the third episode was also very close to general election, and it was kind of paralleling the arguments of one side in it, and was implying that the other side were the monks, which I don't think is particularly kind.
I wonder, you think we'll see the monks again? Or were they pretty much done in this story?
I think that's
after the ratings now.
I mean, I think if they're going to bring them back, it wouldn't make sense to do it on Earth, because that would be weird. You'd have to do it on another planet or something.
Let's try again, round 2.
Right. Well, I mean, isn't that what we get in most alien invasions? The Daleks invade, and then it doesn't work, and they try it again, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, but the Daleks are the Daleks. You have to have Daleks.
Yeah,
but, I mean, you get that whenever the Cybermen, the Ice Warriors.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
I don't get the continuity and the consistency of the Dalek stories anyway, so I just take them one by one and just go with it.
There really isn't continuity.
Well, they did conquer Earth, didn't they?
Yeah, back in the second season of the show, yep. But not for long. Speaking of recurring villains, let's move on to Empress of Mars with the Ice Warriors. The TARDIS crew find Victorian Britons on Mars, led there by an Ice Warrior. They unearth the Ice Empress, who goes to war on the humans. The Doctor and the British captain convince her to end the war. They're contacted by an alien called Alpha Centauri from the Galactic Federation who promises to come to their aid. And then Nardole frees Missy to bring the TARDIS to get the Doctor and Bill. Do you remember the Ice Warriors? They've only been in one main story, which was Cold War, the one in the submarine. And they
Davos.
They did briefly... Right, exactly. They did briefly appear last season. One of them was on the alien street where Clara died as well. They are a classic Doctor Who alien race. They've appeared a bunch of times, mostly in the second and third Doctor's eras.
Yeah, now I remember them because I rewatched that episode like 2 days ago.
Cold
War story. Yeah.
It wasn't a very memorable story, to be honest, for the Ice Warriors.
No, it wasn't. But I mean, my Matt Smith rewatch, so...
Did you like them better here? What'd you think? I liked this story a lot. It was very one-and-done story. It was very much a traditional Doctor Who, but I thought it was a very good traditional Doctor Who as opposed to a very average.
Yeah, it was that kind of episode that just has this weird contrast between an alien race and these Victorian people. Like, what are you doing here? And it's good. Mm-hmm. It works.
And
it
definitely
works,
the political commentary was not subtle, as has been the trend this season. You know. I mean, it's interesting, though, that we finally have an alien invasion where the humans are the alien invaders. You know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and it had kind of a Ken Follett villain with the British guy who wanted to shoot everything.
Right.
Where you just want to give him a good cloud on the ear and make him see sense and send him back to his mother, like the Queen of Thorns would say.
I would have hated him more if he wasn't kind of hot. But that's besides the point. So one thing I do have to bring up for Classic Who, though, the reason I made a big deal about the ending there is that this is actually a prequel to classic Doctor Who stories. Back in the Pertwee era, the Ice Warriors appeared in 2 stories on a planet called Peladon, where Peladon, they were a backwards planet and they were trying to join this galactic federation that Earth was a part of. And the Ice Warriors were also part of this federation. And there was this creature called Alpha Centauri, who was a hermaphrodite hexapod. It was a giant eye with 6 arms. It was really bizarre. It was like, a puppet almost, like a life-size puppet. That was the character that they talked to on the space radio there. The face that shows up is actually the eye of Alpha Centauri, who the Doctor knows, and they even got the same actress who did the voice of the character back then, who's now 92. Her name's Azanne Churchman. They got her back to do the voice for that, 1-minute scene, which is kind of neat. So this story is actually a prequel because the Ice Warriors in those stories were helping to get others to join the Federation, and then there was a question of whether they were really betraying them or not, and in one story they did and one they didn't. So here we get to see how the Ice Warriors were actually brought into the Galactic Federation by the Doctor and Alpha Centauri. So
that's pretty neat.
It is.
I mean, we're talking a story from 1972 this is a prequel to.
Wow.
And I gotta say, as a classic Doctor Who fan, I don't often speak for everyone, but I think any Who fan who, when that radio started to come in and a voice came in, every one of us was going, please, 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 please be Alpha Centauri, please, please, please. And it was, and I almost wet my pants. The definition of nerdy squee.
Yeah, that's what makes me want to watch Classic Who.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're really good episodes. Well, the first one in particular is a really good episode, too. And you can pretty much watch it on its own, which is nice. But the second one, you kind of want to watch the first one because it's a sequel. But it was good. Even not knowing the history, did you like this story? Even without knowing it, I thought it was a solid story. It stands on its own. What do you think?
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Okay, that's fine.
Do you think I'm gonna have angry YouTube comments because of the number of times I said I don't remember?
Well, I mean, it was a year ago. This was almost a year ago we've watched these, so.
Yeah. I only watched all these episodes once, so.
Right. I watched it twice, but that's it. So let's move on to The Eaters of Light. This is actually written by Rona Munro, and a little thing, she actually wrote a story for Classic Who called Survival, which was actually the very last story in Classic Who in 1989. These are the only 2 stories she's ever done, and that was the end, and it had the Master in it, by the way. The TARDIS travels to 2nd century Scotland to solve an argument between Bill and the Doctor over the fate of the 9th Legion of the Roman Imperial Army. Getting separated after a monster attack, Bill befriends some Roman soldiers, while Nardole and the Doctor encounter a local Pict tribe that has been guarding a portal to another dimension and accidentally let something through. Together, the Picts and Romans sacrifice themselves to protect Earth. By the way, this is only the 5th story set in Scotland in all of Doctor Who history. There were 2 classic Doctor Who stories, Highlanders and Terror of the Zygons. Then we had Tooth and Claw and last year's Under the Lake. But the second Doctor had a companion named Jamie who was Scottish. And as a side note, Alan Cumming will be playing King James I in the next season. So we'll have a Scottish, and he'll be supposedly a recurring character. So what do you think of this?
I love Scotland,
I'm fine with
so...
I had to throw the Scottish stuff in there for you, Jock. A little history.
I loved it. It's, again, a historical story.
Right. With aliens.
With aliens, yeah. I do remember this one, and I remember enjoying it very much. Loved the scenery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I enjoyed it. I love historical episodes. I like Scotland. I like the Roman period. So, all in all, I was pretty happy with that one.
Yeah. Jock, our resident Scotsman.
Yeah, we're quite happy with it.
I'm going to probably be the most negative on this one. I didn't think it was bad. I just didn't think it was particularly good. It was very much, again, like Doctor Who by the numbers. Like, I don't remember too much about it other than having just watched it. Like, even when I was watching, I was like, oh, yeah. The one thing that struck me most was like, okay, so first of all, we have black Romans in the middle of it, in the middle of their armies, which, did that happen? I don't know, but I think they're trying to, again, be cool. And they were all bisexual. And openly so and cool about it. And, look at that weird straight guy in our group. Isn't that weird?
That might have been true.
Well, they may have done it, but would they be so openly? And would, like, one of the things, like, we talk about is in modern day is this concept of, like, sexual identity didn't exist back then. Like, this idea that I'm bi or I'm gay or whatever, like, that wasn't an idea, really. I don't feel like Romans would feel that way. They may fuck boys and, whatever. But would they talk about it? Would they be proud of it? Would they be like, oh, yeah, I fuck boys and girls. Hey, that was a very modern look,
Yeah.
Yeah. I obviously, yeah. But I also think, like, it wouldn't be too much of an issue. It's not that they wouldn't talk about it, because they would just as much as they would talk about anything else, I think. It wasn't an issue, clearly. I mean, clearly, no. I don't really know. But yeah, again, it's Doctor Who just changing history a little bit to make it cooler.
Right. In this case, it really struck me as a little weird. Like, okay, not only do we have the blacks in the middle of the thing, we're totally going to try to make Bill fit in and seem okay and not weird. And I felt in this case it was almost pushing into preachy.
Yeah, again, it was very heavy-handed.
Yeah. If there's one thing that's true of this season, it hasn't been subtle.
No.
Yep. When is Doctor Who ever subtle?
Sometimes. Not often, but sometimes.
Not very often.
No.
Especially with Moffat.
Right. Anything else on this episode? It was nice. They had a happy ending. It was,
Happy, yeah.
Well,
all right.
happy ending. They're all going to spend all of eternity fighting aliens, but happy for Earth. Happy in that the two invading armies that were fighting and killing each other decided to unite to fight the aliens.
Yeah.
I thought it was really average.
I gotta say, I love the title of the next episode and of the last episode. Actually, I just think that both these titles, World Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls, are really compelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I love English. I love the English language, and I love these titles.
World Enough and Time. So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
The Doctor gives Missy a test adventure to see how she'll do. They arrive on a colony ship near a black hole. Things quickly go wrong as Bill is shot and rushed away. Bill wakes in a hospital on the other end of the ship where time runs much more slowly and where her heart has been replaced with a machine to save her life. A kindly caretaker, or so we think, takes her in and explains that the patients are being upgraded, which we learn means into the original classic Cybermen. She spends years waiting for the Doctor to finally arrive, but he's too late when he discovers that Bill has been converted into a Cyberman, and Missy discovers that the caretaker is her previous incarnation of the Master. Cliffhanger. So, this is easily my favorite episode of the whole season, and one of my favorite episodes of Doctor Who ever. I think this was brilliant. What do you guys think?
It was.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I just say that I loved the older Cyberman costumes?
Yes. Well, those were
just like a stocking, some mascara, and some tin.
Which, by the way, were from 10th Planet.
Scarier than the newer ones.
Mm-hmm. They were from the 10th Planet, which is actually the episode that we're going to pop into the end of in the Christmas special. Those were the very first Cybermen, and they were creepy.
Yeah, they are.
They still are.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with Jock.
And
that
you can copy it at home, so...
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing is, it's hard to see the modern kind of Cybermen as actually people. I mean, yes, they're humanoid in shape, but you don't see anything of them that's human. You have arms and legs, but that could just be a robot that we built, right? With a sock over their face or whatever that's supposed to be. And their hands you can see too. You can tell these are people. These are people who are suffering. It's intense.
Yeah.
There's so much in this story to talk about, though, because I thought it was just all around. There was so much going on. Bill's story is absolutely heartbreaking. And how shocking is it that she dies like 10 minutes into the episode? They shoot her through the chest where you can see through her.
Yeah.
My jaw dropped there, I'll admit it.
I think I screamed at my computer when I saw this scene.
Right.
Yeah, it was shocking.
And then she gets this really intense storyline where she's in this mystery horror hospital where people are suffering and saying, kill me. This is intense. This is a really serious, deep, powerful story, I thought, all around. And then we've got this weird guy with a really weird fake accent, which I didn't understand why they were going with.
How long did it take for you to realize if it was John Sim?
I got spoiled, unfortunately, so I knew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I accidentally saw something on Facebook and was really bummed because I saw it like 5 minutes before watching the episode. I was like, oh!
Shit! No, maybe on that occasion, I think I had an idea beforehand.
I don't think I would have, to be honest. I
bought it until like a minute before it was revealed.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, maybe.
I figured it out in the room with the patients.
Yeah. Now we understand why they had the crazy accent, because obviously if John Sim had just talked, we would have known instantly, right?
Yeah.
He has a distinctive voice.
Well, I've seen him in too many things as well.
He did well in this, and you could tell he was having fun with it, right? I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Both parts, he was just having great fun with it. For those of you who don't know, we haven't really seen the Master do that at all on New Who. I mean, I guess he pretended to be the president of Earth, but he really was the president of Earth, so that wasn't really a disguise.
Yeah.
You know, that's something they did a lot in both the third and fifth Doctor eras, which is when the Master appeared, he'd often be pretending to be someone else with, you know, a bad mask on, so that, first of all, the Doctor didn't know it was him, and second of all, we, the audience, didn't know it was him. So they kept it a surprise that the Master was in the show.
Yana.
But when Missy shows up, we don't know it's her immediately.
Yeah, and you're right, Jock, Professor Yana.
Yep. Oh, that's true. Yano, that was one time. But that wasn't a disguise either, in that...
He didn't know
he was
exactly the Master, right?
Right.
Well, he put himself into it.
Right.
So...
But he didn't know his memory was taken from him. Which we finally get the past of in a recent Big Finish. They did a whole War Master bus. The one thing I gotta say is, would you have figured it out if they hadn't announced that John Sim was in this? I don't think any of us would have figured it out. Would you have?
No. Nope.
It's really a shame.
I didn't know he was in it.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, I didn't know.
Because, I mean, it was all over the internet immediately, and it was all over the news. It was officially announced, and I'm sure it was announced because it was about to be leaked. It's a shame that you really can't have surprises like that very often on TV these days.
Especially when, well, it's a British show, so in this case, it's not as much of a problem in Europe, but for American shows, when you're in Europe and you wake up in the morning and something is aired in the night in America,
right,
and you see the news, and
you
you're
have
like,
to stay off the internet.
Shit!
Yeah, you totally have to stay off the internet.
I am now spoiled.
Well, for us Americans, Doctor Who airs 5 hours later. Some of them, they used to air at the same time, but that's in the afternoon here, so no one would watch it. They aired the 50th anniversary. I think they aired at the same time, but they aired it again at night. But generally, they air it here like 7 hours after you, because we're 5 hours behind England, and then I think they air it at 9 here, where it aired at like around 7, give or take, in the UK. So we have to stay off the internet, or, you know, you could just pay the iron price and find it on the internet, I guess. But I'm usually working Saturday night, so it's a moot point. I don't get to watch it till I get home from work, which is after most Americans have even seen it. But the joys of being a waiter. I just think there was so much going on in this, though. You had that whole neat idea of the time running differently on the same ship.
That's really cool.
Such a neat idea, right?
Yeah.
You know,
it's so tragic, because you're like, they're not that far away. They're just like an elevator ride away, but it's years.
Yeah.
Although, admittedly, him coming to the rescue the moment after she gets converted is a little dubious. But I'll allow it because it was so powerful. That whole, I waited for you. I mean, how sad was that? So.
Yeah, it was terrible. I feel like I'm just connecting all these episodes to previous episodes. But it's the girl who waited all over again, right?
Yep. Well, I think Moffat did that a lot in this season. This season was in many ways a greatest hits. Particularly the next episode, I think he does a lot of that, you know? He does a lot of bringing back other ideas.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah,
that was
this
so
was
sad.
tragic.
I waited for you.
Yeah.
She's a Cyberman, and I waited for you. I didn't quite cry, but I was on the verge. That was just so horrible. First she gets shot through the chest, then she gets saved, then she spends years waiting, and he doesn't save her, and now she's a monster. That's one of the most awful things that's ever happened to a companion. You know?
Yeah, that's for sure. This was shocking.
And I was really worried at this point that that's how they were going to end it. It would have been pretty amazingly awful if they had ended that way, if she didn't get her happy ending.
Yeah, because it would have been would have been
tragedy.
Courageous.
They don't have the balls to do that.
Yeah, exactly. But all of the other companions, even those who quote unquote died, had kind of a happy ending in the end.
Right. Well, except sort of Donna didn't. I think Donna's ending is the worst ever with the whole, don't let me forget this, don't. Oh, that was awful.
I think, yeah.
Although she does get to get married and live happily ever after, but and get rich because he gives her a lottery ticket. But
I didn't love Donna, so didn't.
I did. But
I loved her.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But back to Bill. Let's stick with Bill. What great set of end cliffhangers here. We first have Missy finding out that the Master and confronting the Doctor. We get Bill as a Cyberman. I waited for you. That was like one of the better cliffhangers ever in Doctor Who, don't you think?
Yeah.
So then we move into the resolution. The Doctor falls. After escaping from the Masters, the Doctor tries to comfort Bill, who refuses to see herself as a Cyberman. They end up on a level of the ship with farming villagers. The Cybermen are coming to convert everyone. The Doctor asks for the Master and Missy's help, but they reject him. Nardole takes control of the defense of the people, while the Doctor and Bill take a last stand to hold off the Cybermen. Missy decides to go back to help the Doctor, but the infuriated Master shoots her. She shoots him back, leaving them both dying and about to regenerate. Nardole stays behind to protect the villagers. The Doctor seemingly dies, but Bill is saved by Heather from their first episode, leaving the Doctor behind on the TARDIS. He tries to stop himself regenerating when he runs into the first Doctor in a snowy landscape. So was this not Moffat's greatest hits there? Was Bill's story not Clara's from her very first episode as a Dalek?
Yeah, kind of.
Moffat just throws so many of his old ideas into one story, and it works mostly, but I don't think it was as good as the setup. The previous episode was amazing. This was good. And remember, this is the end. I mean, yeah, we get one more story with Capaldi, but this is really how he dies, really, right? I mean, you get killed by the Cybermen here, saving a bunch of villagers.
I think the idea of the spaceship with so many different levels was a neat idea to have 2 episodes being one story, but in different settings. This is this whole farming level of the ship, so it just looks very different from the previous episode, but it's still the continuing story,
Mm-hmm. What do you think of the Doctor's ending here, saving them from Cybermen?
Fitting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The death of the Doctors are always, I think, really good. And again, it's the Master's fault, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess he did kind of create them, didn't he? He helped create them. He helped create them, yep. You know, one thing I thought was really dark, though, was that the Master spends years with Bill just to piss off the Doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. He could have just killed her. He could have killed her 10 years ago. He keeps her around to turn her into a Cyberman just so that he comes in at the last minute and is pissed off that he turned his best friend into a monster. That's dark.
So dark.
That's so dark, right? And part of why he does it is because he's mad that he's turning Missy good. Although, did he know that then? I don't know, but...
No, it said it took him years to figure out.
But even then, it's so dark that he will spend years just to, like, wound the Doctor like that.
Mm.
That's dark. And he was so good in it.
That's not friendship.
Right. How can you forgive him now after that? And he even said that's one of the reasons he did it was so that you can never forgive her now that I've done this. Once he realized that Missy was him, which he did as soon as he saw her on the TV screen, I assume, that's why he kept her around, Bill, so that he could prevent this from happening.
Do they explain why Missy doesn't remember this?
They can't. The Doctor in the past when he's been with another one of himself. Can't remember it afterwards.
Right. When they all meet, because you meet yourself, that causes like time weird loopy stuff, so you just sort of forget it, I guess. You kind of remember that it happened, but you don't remember the details, I think, is kind of what they get at. They've never really explained it because realistically it's fiction, so
Yeah.
who knows if time travel's even possible.
They invent rules as they go, obviously. Right. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Although we do know that there was that whole moment to keep a circuit on you because she told him to do that, and that's what saves her later. That's why she has it, because she told him to do it. That was a neat little twist there that I liked. What about Nardole in this one? Nardole gets actually a lot to do in this one. He becomes our tech guru. Suddenly he knows computers and can make all this weird stuff happen, which kind of came out of nowhere, but I'll buy it. He gets a heroic ending, and he even kind of gets the girl if they do end up together.
If
the old lady.
He wants her. I'm not sure he does.
He kind of. We seem to be heading there. I don't know. But, I mean, he gets to be with people. He gets a home. He gets to settle down, which he's never kind of done before, is from what we can tell. And the doctor made him into a hero, which he didn't want to be. So I like that. I liked it.
Yeah, me too.
I wonder if we'll ever see him again, other than, well, in the Christmas special. Oh, and the other thing, I don't know if you caught there, was that because time was going crazy in different eras, did you notice we got every different era of Cybermen throughout history? We got modern Cybermen, we got older ones, we've got different ones from all different eras. Because they were all from, some of them were from 10 years ago, some were from 100 years ago.
Yeah.
You know?
That was one of the cool things from the time
distortion
thing. Yeah.
They also tried to explain a kind of weird thing in Doctor Who history where they were from the planet Mondas, but then we've got these ones from another universe that were from Earth, and then we kind of merged the two somewhere in the history when they'd never bothered explaining it. And then were they from Telos, and there were all these other things. So the Doctor just sort of said, oh yeah, this is parallel happened on all sorts of worlds, which is kind of a neat and brand new idea, that basically anywhere there's people, there will eventually be Cybermen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is kind of dark in and of itself. This is the inevitable end of humanity.
Yeah.
Or on the dark side, this is what technology does to us. Give us a little Black Mirror kind of twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Or is it just any universe where the Master exists?
there you go, maybe. Except that in the original's timeline, he didn't have anything to do with it. Then again,
no.
he can insert himself in anywhere he wants, right? After all, the last two Cyberman stories have had the Master and Missy in charge, so...
Yeah.
And have kind of created that generation of Cybermen, so... So it's kind of sad this will be the end of Missy, the end of everyone except for the people who show up in the next special.
She had a very great ending, though.
Yes, I thought so.
I mean, the dynamic between both masters, or the Master and Missy, was just great to watch. Very funny.
Two great actors just getting to act.
Yes.
Act up a storm together, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I love the most is that when they shot each other, they then started laughing. I loved that.
Yeah.
That was perfect. They should have been mad at each other, and they were just, this is ridiculous. And they started laughing. I loved it.
Yeah.
A really darkly funny moment and a violent, angry ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's kind of appropriate that the Master kills himself so that he won't become good.
Mm-hmm.
And that she kills herself and creates herself so that she can.
Boom, time paradox. Here
Well,
we
it's
go.
quite strange because, well, the Master's normal thing is that he's actually normally more capable than the Doctor. Like, he can
Right.
hypnotise people, and he's normally smarter than him in things like Genesis of the Daleks or the Five Doctors. But normally his failing comes from he's completely unwilling to do anything akin to self-sacrifice.
Right.
And the Doctor is, so that's normally when he fails. So I find it a bit
And he's
ironic,
selfish.
him, you know, killing himself, yeah.
Right? Is that suicide? Is that a double suicide?
The Doctor's plan all along.
Oh, that would be dark. That would be really dark. Not true, but dark. Bill's little happy ending there, we haven't talked about. She ends up having this tragic, I'm not going to be a Cyberman. She basically commits suicide. I'm going to go out fighting because I don't want to live like this. And the Doctor lets her, which is kind of weird. Of course, we can't end that way. That would have been awful. Although it would have been really powerful to end that way.
Yeah,
But
it wouldn't have been very Doctor Who, but I
Exactly.
think the story would be better if it had ended
Exact- I
like
agree.
this.
I agree.
Yeah. But I'm
100%.
still happy that it didn't because...
Right.
Yeah, but... Yeah.
But then we get the I talked to you for 5 minutes girlfriend that I'm, I guess, in love with, and she loves her so much that she comes back for her. Which, I guess Deus Ex Machina happy ending. I'll take it.
Yeah, well, it's just better than her being a Cyberman, so you have to be happy with it.
And love wins in the end. Aw.
Yeah.
And then she leaves the Doctor in the TARDIS because she doesn't know about regeneration. Or it seems like he's really dead. And then, for some reason I don't understand, which will get us into the next episode, this Doctor decides, after having just earned a whole new set of regenerations at the beginning of this lifetime, because he should have been done, he decides, nope, you know what? I don't want to regenerate. So the Doctor effectively is trying to commit suicide here, which is kind of a strange way to end this Doctor. A character who says, be kind. And
Well, he hasn't said it yet.
Well, he's said it a few other times.
He said it before.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
He sums it up at the end, but...
I mean, that's the story of the Christmas special. Goes through this, I don't want to regenerate, and change his mind.
I guess my problem is I don't buy him thinking that in the first place. If he dies, how many billions and trillions of other people will not survive? It's almost selfish to say I want to rest now.
Yeah, obviously, but what happened to Bill is really traumatic for him.
True, and he doesn't know about her happy ending either. So.
Yeah, and I mean, for most of the companions, Rory and Amy got taken by the angels, but then they lived happily ever after.
But they could never leave New York in the 20s.
Yeah, but I mean, admittedly,
they
Matt Smith was 11 was really, really devastated about that.
Right.
But this is a story where the companion was actually transformed into a Cyberman.
Into a monster.
That almost happened thousands of times, but it didn't, and now it did happen. So it's obviously really tough to take.
This happened directly
for the Doctor.
This happened directly because she came with him. If he had left her behind, she'd be alive and happy cooking chips at the university.
Yeah.
And now she's a monster and has no control over herself. She has a little now, but inevitably she's theoretically going to lose all that at some point.
Yeah. You can argue that Clara, it was all tragic, but she kind of died because of her own confidence.
Right.
But Bill, it's really she trusted him and she waited for him and she trusted that he would save her and he didn't. That's a new one.
I feel like there's kind of a lack of originality with Bill's ending, and it's kind of the same one as Clara, where she's dead, but she still gets to live with her girlfriend happily ever after. That's exactly how Clara ends. Stopped in time the moment before she dies, and she can just wander off with Maisie Williams.
Yeah. That was another one of my little thoughts of when I said it's like Moffat's greatest hits. He did that completely with Clara. But at least Clara did die. She doesn't. We know that she will eventually die because we've seen her post-death in the Christmas special. But everyone dies eventually, so of course they all are dead at some point. But she does get a happy ending that maybe you could argue in both cases isn't really earned by the story. Mm-hmm. But we're glad because, it's Clara and it's Bill, so we're happy they have a happy ending. And it's kind of like, in many ways, Moffat in a nutshell. I want to give a dark ending, but this is Doctor Who, so I can't. Mm-hmm. Even, Russell T. Davies, the previous producer, said, I can't kill a companion. I keep pretending I'm going to, but I just can't do it. That's not what Doctor Who is. Although I'd argue he gives Dawn an even sadder ending than death, forgetting all these amazing things she did. But we really haven't seen a true companion death, unless you count Clara, which is a death, but then she's going to go on and have, hundreds of adventures before that.
Yeah.
He wants to have his cake and eat it, too.
Yeah. And the idea of running off before a fixed event happens, that's what happened to Amy when she runs off before her wedding night. She's like, oh, but I'm going to come back. No worries. Right. But Clara just runs off and says, I have infinite time now. I can just go off, wander the universe.
Right. Unless she dies again, which would get messy.
Yeah, what if she dies again? But she's not really living. She's in between two heartbeats, so...
Right. Which makes no sense.
She can't die.
Which, of course, makes no scientific sense, but it's Doctor Who. It's Doctor Who.
Let's not go there.
Exactly. So, in any case, speaking of the end of Bill and the end of an era, let's move on to the end of an era. Twice Upon a Time. The first Doctor is refusing to regenerate after fighting the Cybermen at the South Pole. He runs into the 12th Doctor and an injured First World War captain. They get captured by an alien holographic pilot whose race takes people before the moment of their deaths to download their memories. Bill returns, although she is a simulation avatar with Bill's memories. After they agree to return the captain to his time, the aliens let them go back in time to experience the famous Christmas truce between the Germans and British soldiers. Both Doctors decide to regenerate for some reason I don't really understand. But first, the Doctor sees avatars of Clara and Nardole before finally saying farewell to Bill. He gives an inspiring speech for his future self and then regenerates into a woman. The regeneration damages the TARDIS, which throws her out the door, sending her plummeting to Earth into a cliffhanger into the new era. So let's start with, what do you think of the first Doctor? Did you like him?
I just kept seeing Walder Frey, so...
Right? Now, of course, this is not the same actor who played the first Doctor, because he died in the 70s. But this is David Bradley, who, of course, is Walder Frey. He had previously played William Hartnell, playing the first Doctor, in a TV movie they did for the 50th anniversary. It was called An Adventure in Space and Time, and it was a story about the creation of Doctor Who, like a dramatization, with like the directors and the producers. And he played William Hartnell, playing the first Doctor. So this is now, he's actually the first Doctor now. You know, if they ever want to bring him back, they can as the first Doctor, even though it's not really him, and his voice is different, and his mannerisms are a little different. Hartnell had more of a twinkle than David Bradley does. David Bradley gets the tetchiness of the first Doctor, but the first Doctor was grumpy with a twinkle in his eye, which he didn't have so much. I like that they played the sexism.
Yeah, I like that they did bring that up and that Capaldi reacts to it and he's like, dude, that's not okay.
He's embarrassed by himself.
You cannot say that to my companion right now.
Right.
That was very funny, but if you think about it, it kind of makes no sense that the first Doctor would be sexist and 12 wouldn't. You could expect that there would be no sexism on Gallifrey.
Right. You'd hope, but maybe not.
Yeah, it was funny, and it was addressing the issue that probably I don't know, I haven't seen, but classic Who was more in its time and was less modern than New Who, which would make sense.
It was 1963, after all. The story was in 66.
Yeah. So
I think it's more a commentary on the show itself and how it evolved.
It was a wink, nod, nod.
Yeah, but character-wise, it did feel out of character.
Yep.
Precisely, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It didn't really make sense, but yet it was kind of cool because this still exists on film. You can watch it.
Yeah.
The Doctor does actually threaten to smack a female companion's bottom in one episode. That did happen. Isn't that horrible? Like, how do you even watch that now without cringing? I mean, how do you watch it back then without cringing?
I wasn't there back then to watch it.
Right.
So.
Well, you can watch them on DVD now.
Yeah.
Or download or whatever. And I liked also the little bit when the Doctor makes a very kind of undoctorly comment where he says, I've had experiences with women, even though, not that we've seen on the show, well, he had like in one episode he flirted with a woman, but that's about it. But then when Bill goes, so have I, and he's like, oh! That was cute. Which is a little commentary because apparently in real life, the first Doctor, rumor has it, was homophobic and a little racist too in real life and didn't want to act with a gay actor or with black actors. So there was a little commentary in there as well, I think.
Yeah.
You know? While we can still love the first Doctor, we can acknowledge that there were some flaws.
Just saying, like, I would love the idea of a sort of sexist Gallifrey.
Maybe it was. You know, we live in a future that isn't perfect. Or they lived in the future.
So, if you regenerate into a woman...
turn into women. Yeah.
Right. Well, back then they didn't think of such a horrible idea. Horrible if you're sexist.
Unthinkable.
So what about the story itself? We have these aliens, and it kind of doesn't make much sense, and kind of halfway through the story, they sort of are no longer the bad guys, because does the Doctor really do anything to save the day or stop anyone? Or it sort of was like, we basically want to have the first and 12th Doctors meet, and we want to have him meet Bill, and we basically have an hour to kill, so let's throw some story in here that we don't really care about.
Yeah, I did really enjoy the episode, but these kind of aliens, how is this the first time that we're seeing them?
Right.
Like, that's the kind of thing that doesn't make sense. And they seem so much more powerful than the Doctor and the Time Lords, who are supposed to be these all-powerful beings, along with the Daleks, I guess, but more in military power. Anyway, you kind of have to wonder how they fit in the bigger picture. But otherwise, I always love these kind of historical little things and these Christmas truce between the Germans and British and actually French soldiers. It's a part of history that always makes me feel something. And in every movie or TV show or stuff that I see or read where it's mentioned, I'm always very emotional about it. So
and it
that
makes
worked.
so little sense.
It's very
Like,
sweet.
how did this really happen even? Like, it's so bizarre to think about.
it's
Like,
just-
I
it's
kill you one
incredible.
day, then we stop and we sing Christmas carols, and then I kill you tomorrow. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's hopeful, but it's
Well, they
weird.
didn't. They didn't kill each other. Both sides had to move all their troops around so
Yeah.
they would.
I guess then, yeah, that makes more sense, because that's weird.
It still doesn't make sense, and it expresses the just stupidity of war. Like,
Right.
these people have no reason to kill each other, and
Right.
yet they do, and they were doing that 2 hours ago, and they will keep doing that the next day, even though not with exactly the same person that they met at this Christmas truce, but it doesn't make sense. War doesn't make sense, I mean.
Right, there's the problem. Which is kind of the whole point of the story, right?
Yeah.
We get a little more history there, where this captain is a Lethbridge Stewart.
Well,
And-
fake history in
and
that
he
case,
makes
but yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It's a retcon.
Fake Doctor Who.
It's a retcon. Do you know who Lethbridge Stewart is?
Brigadier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
because
the-
we do
Yeah.
meet his daughter in the new
Exactly.
Who
Exactly.
era, yeah.
I'm glad you catch that, because I don't know if a lot of people caught that. But you don't have to, really. But he just promises to protect the family, and that's good enough. But the Brigadier is a major character through the entire Third Doctor era, who then appears sporadically over the years throughout the show. And in fact, he technically appears because... Remember when Mrs. Cybermen come up from the dead, bring the dead back up? Well, one of the dead was the Brigadier, remember, was him. And
Yeah.
he helped save the day, even though he's a Cyberman now. So the Brigadier does appear, and his daughter is, of course, Kate Lethbridge Stewart, who's now in charge of UNIT.
Yeah.
So he promises to watch over the family, and he does. Which was,
Aw.
I mean, that was a great moment.
And-
The actor says that when he read that in the script, that it was him, he cried.
Mm.
If you're a fan, it was a neat moment. It wasn't necessary, but it was sweet. On a bad note of history, though, in the 10th Planet, the Doctor had two companions, Polly and Ben. They recast them, if you caught in the first few seconds of the episode. They
Yeah.
went from, like, the original actors into these new people. And if you actually looked at all, they look nothing like the real actor and actress. So I think they planned on doing more with them, but then decided, no, this isn't working. And I think they ended up cutting some of the scenes they filmed. But if you think about it, it makes no sense because they're in the Doctor's TARDIS, right? The first Doctor's TARDIS. Ben and Polly would be in there with him. So where are
Yeah.
they? Are they off getting coffee? Through the whole episode? You know?
Yep.
They're on holiday.
They went to make some tea.
Yeah.
Of course.
Right, because it's British, it would have to be. But yeah, it's like, I could see the Doctor sending Polly off to get tea, but Ben wouldn't put up with it. I think it was
Well-
one of those, let's just skip this. We put a little moment of it in, and that's all we need.
I guess it's still a good decision. Like, yes, it doesn't quite make sense for the story that they aren't there, but wouldn't it have been cringing all the way for
Yeah.
you old fans to see new actors that really had nothing to do with the original ones?
Right. If they looked like it, I would, or even somewhat, I would have been okay. But particularly like the guy who played Ben looks nothing like him. I was literally, as it was happening, as I saw it, I was like, oh my God, are we going to see him the whole episode? And then we didn't. And I was kind of glad when I'd been
Yeah.
kind of hoping we would, actually. Because Ben and Polly, we don't get to see much of because almost all of their stories don't exist. They've been wiped from the BBC archives.
Yeah.
Would have been nice, but oh well. So we get, just before the Doctor regenerates, well, first he says goodbye to Bill, and he finds out what happened to Bill, that she didn't, in fact, become a Cyberman. She did, but then she was saved, so that's nice. And we get to see, surprise, surprise, Clara and Nardole again.
Yeah.
Were you surprised?
Yeah.
Clara
I was.
gets
I
a
thought for
happy
sure.
ending.
I thought for sure we were going to get to see Clara. And
I
the Doctor
didn't
gets to
think.
remember. The Doctor, remember, he
Yeah,
forgot her,
that's,
which is
that's
awesome. He
the
gets
most
to remember
important
her.
part.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Even if it's not really her, what do you think of that whole idea?
But-
Are they
but
really
it
her, or
does-
are you your memories?
Well,
that's not okay.
If we're talking about that, it does bring back to the Doctor all of his memories of Clara, which was what he'd lost in the first place. So in this point, it's even better than if he hadn't met Clara, because he does meet Clara, but he doesn't remember her, and it does nothing.
Yeah.
Do you think of this as Bill and Clara?
Think they are the people. They're not made out of cells. They're computer generated.
Right. Are we memory? Yeah. Are we souls? Are we physical? That's a deep philosophical question.
Yeah, I'm not sure this is the point of the episode.
Right.
But
well,
no,
they do make a big deal of it, though. They talk about it quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, it is a big deal, and I think it's another kind of science fiction idea. Right. The usual science fiction things, we don't see them too much in Doctor Who, actually.
Right.
But this is one, and it did make me uncomfortable, and I think that was the goal, probably. Uh-huh. So, no, I don't think they are actually the people. But I do think that they are kind of a good imitation, and that it does bring some closure and solace to the Doctor.
Exactly. And I think that's really the point. Yeah. And not only that, but in this case, it brings knowledge to the Doctor. I mean, he gets to find out that Bill got a happy ending. He gets to remember Clara. Yeah. I mean, not so much with Nardole, because, And on some level, it's the same way if you think of the end of Smith's era. He sees a vision of Amy, but we don't really care about Rory, so we'll skip him. But he sees a vision of Amy, and that's obviously not her. It's just a dream of her. But it gives him the closure, which is nice. Same thing with Capaldi. I was glad, though. Were you really surprised? You didn't expect it?
Yeah, I didn't. Same as always. I don't expect anything, really. Right. I just watch. And so, no, I didn't expect it. It wasn't the biggest surprise of the year, probably, but it was really nice to see Clara again.
But we cheered.
It was a good surprise.
Right?
Yeah.
You cheered when it happened, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Totally. And I thought for sure, yes, they'd bring back Clara. I wasn't sure they'd bring back Nardole, and I was glad they did. Yeah. Even if, it wasn't much, it was still nice to give the hug and the farewell. Remember when the Doctor goes to meet Rusty the Dalek? Well, the planet is named Villengard. And I admit I Googled this. I didn't know this offhand. It's first mentioned in Stephen Moffat's very first story, The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances. The Ninth Doctor says that he vaporized the weapons factories of that planet, and bananas now grow there. I don't know if you remember, he says that to Captain Jack. He's like, and remember, now there's bananas. That was in his very first story. So when we talk about his greatest hits, this is the planet that Rusty the Dalek's on, right? And the Doctor now. So we get to finally see the planet of bananas. Before they're bananas. So it was a little... I guess it's one of those, if I ever want to tell this story, now's my last chance.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't mind. Like, he did run the show for how many years? 5. And it had very good moments, and I enjoyed it. And I mean... I do understand this need to himself get some kind of closure on this and go out saying everything he wanted to say, kind of...
I'm fine with it. I mean, some of it was a little corny at times, but what's Doctor Who without a little corny, right?
Yeah.
So, Capaldi's final monologue to his future self. Did you like it?
Yeah. No, it was
so good.
It was a good monologue. That's one of those speeches. Cried. That was one of his speeches, right? That he'll be remembered by,
I think it was my favorite last speech before Regeneration.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And obviously, this is, on many ways, Moffat's final speech, too.
Yeah.
Which, in fact, literally it is, because the next scenes with Jodie Whittaker was actually written by Chris Chibnall, the incoming showrunner. So this is his last scene. Do you think it was an appropriate speech for him to go out on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Inspiring speeches are kind of his thing. So, yeah.
But to himself, that's kind of weird.
Being kind and being forgiving, it worked. To me, it felt natural. It felt like a fitting thing to do for this Doctor who's kind of the grandfatherly figure, giving advice, trying to get people to love each other and love themselves.
Yeah.
It worked.
We see that with each regeneration, that it's a burden on the Doctor to not know what or who is going to be next.
Will he be Ginger?
so
or a woman?
Obviously, yeah, God forbid. I'm not saying he's worried about who he will be next, but I think it is appropriate that he wants to keep something of who he is now into his future incarnation.
Preemptive kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll be remembered for Be Kind?
Yeah.
You think that's...
Yeah.
I mean, if you had to remember Capaldi by, like, one thing, what would it be?
Between that and the Zygon speech.
Yeah, the Zygon speech, I think, comes first. And this second.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like, I still remember it, and it was, like, 2 years ago.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Even if the episode itself, I don't remember all the bits of it. That speech
but
is...
the speech we remember. I remember talking to friends about it. Friends who didn't even watch Doctor Who.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's one of those YouTube clips you can send to people, and it still fits.
Exactly.
Even out of context. You have no idea what they're talking about. Anything left on Capaldi before we move on to Jodie Whittaker?
I loved him. He was great.
He had a tough job. We had two young, attractive, well-loved doctors in a row, and now we're going back to the older man, and the ratings dropped, so he's, of course, going to be blamed for it, but ratings of every show on television are dropping. It was a tough and bold choice that Moffat made, and I think it paid off. I think he was good. I think Capaldi will be remembered as a great doctor. Do you agree?
Well, I will certainly remember him as a great doctor.
Yeah, I think he'll be good.
Yeah.
I wonder if the kids will remember him as their doctor. The way that Smith and Tennant definitely... People even now say they're their favorite doctors. I wonder if in 10 years people will say Capaldi was my favorite doctor.
Well, that's worked for every doctor but Baker.
Yeah, Baker will always be one of the greats, and I think Baker and Tennant will probably go down as the two most popular doctors ever. But now we've got a new one, and it's a woman.
It's a woman.
You know, let's take just a moment about the controversy around that. I find it so odd. I mean, I'm an old school fan, and I get that there are some fanboys who genuinely hate any change you do to the show. They hated when the Doctor fell in love with Rose. They hated anything you do different if you change anything, and I get that. And there are some that they're just going to be like that. But the fact is the majority of people are just more upset that it's a woman. And I find it so bizarre that a show that's about change, I mean, nothing stays the same on this show ever, even, except maybe the outside of the TARDIS sort of does, although it slightly evolves. Everything's different. We have a new cast every couple of years, or even every year often. We get new writers, new showrunners. There's nothing static about this show. And it's a story about an alien time traveler who's smarter than any of us, who knows how to create anything, you need to solve any situation, who travels through time and space and is nothing like any of us. And I love that, and I can get it, but wait, a woman? That's too alien for me. That's just I'm sorry, that's just sexism. I'm sorry. You can try to pretend that, it's change or whatever, but I'm sorry, that's just sexism.
Yeah, I get being worried about a new Doctor. I am every time there's a new Doctor. It's just because you love the previous one so much every time, so am I really going to be able to still love the character even though it's different actors or actresses? So, yeah, I was worried for Capaldi. I was worried when I started off with Matt Smith. And I'm, in the same sense, worried about Jodie Whittaker, but I'm not worried because she's a woman. Right. But, yeah, I agree that a lot of people are, and it's sad. We're not there yet.
It's so weird that we live in this world where whenever you give a job to a woman or a black person or a gay person or whatever, everyone jumps out, agenda, 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 agenda. But who's the one pushing the agenda here? The people who want the same, straight white men in all these positions over and over again and in every single show on television? I mean, you have every other show on television with white men in charge. Why is it so horrible for you to have one that isn't? And for you to feel like, I can't watch this. I can't even relate to a show about a woman, but I can relate to a show about an alien? And then you expect women to relate to shows about men. Exactly. And why don't you get it? They don't get how a black kid may want to see a black superhero or a woman superhero or whatever, but how dare you take one from us of the 3,000 we have? It's so bizarre.
Yep.
But more specifically, Jodie Whittaker. Have any of you seen anything with her?
Yes.
Broadchurch.
Have you seen Broadchurch? I haven't watched it yet. I've got to. I intend to, but we'll see if I get around.
It's great.
It's great. It's very different from Doctor Who.
Right.
As you can probably assume.
Although it is the same producer, so maybe it won't be very different from Doctor Who soon.
Well, I hope it will be, because, I mean, I don't want to Broadchurch Doctor Who.
I don't really want Doctor Who to make me as sad as Broadchurch.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're definitely going to get different stuff in it. I mean, we've got 3 companions, including an older man and a black. You know, it's like we've got a whole bunch of different people in this cast now. Instead of just one story. I know, right? People are going to say that.
Oh my god.
You know, it's interesting that like the first old companion we've got is a man. You know, we couldn't have an old woman on the show, right? You know?
God forbid, a woman and old.
It isn't like sexy, you know, but whatever. But I mean, it is going to be very different, I think.
Yeah.
Chris Chibnall has his Doctor Who credentials because he, first of all, was one of the script editors on Torchwood, and he's written a bunch of episodes. And he's written, 42, Hungry Earth, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, and Power of Three. He also wrote the shorts Pond Life and P.S., which is one of my favorite pieces of Doctor Who writing ever, which was kind of the epilogue to Rory, particularly, and Amy's story. And I just loved the character that he put in like that 3-minute piece, and also in Power of Three, where Rory actually gets like a character and a personality besides I love Amy. And it gives me hope that this is going to be a story about characters, because that's what I love Doctor Who the best, when the characters are really interesting and evolve over time and have a storyline. And I think we're going to get that from Chibnall, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
I'm really hopeful as well.
Me too.
So are you excited? Are you excited for Who? You're definitely watching?
Yes.
Are all of you watching?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think Jodie Whittaker is a great actress as well, so
Which is the
quite
key.
excited about that. And I really like Chris Chibnall as a writer.
Well, see, though, because it's funny because his shorts were really good, his Pond Life and his PS, but his stories themselves weren't all that great. So I'm hoping he can do better.
Well, do you not like 48 Hours?
42?
Or 48
okay.
minutes?
It was
sorry.
okay.
Yeah, 42.
I don't remember about 42.
It was basically
Yeah.
a parody of 24, the
All right.
TV show.
Well, not
Yeah.
exactly. The Doctor was a monster.
It was okay. I don't think any of them were great. That's the thing, but
I loved Power of Three and Dinosaurs in a Spaceship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought
Me
they were
too.
okay. Yeah, to me, they were very, I like the character bits in them, though, so that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the parts I like.
Gonna be
So,
brilliant.
Chibnall wrote these first,
Few words.
the last minute of the episode,
Mhm.
and some people have made the joke, hey, we put a woman in charge of the TARDIS and she crashes.
Yeah, well, guess what?
Haha, very
every-
funny.
People
Every
made the joke.
TARDIS with a new Doctor crashed, right? Like, almost.
Not really, but yeah.
Well,
In recent- in
when
recent
Matt
eras,
Smith
yes.
got
In
in
recent
charge,
eras.
he wasted 12 years of Amy's life.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, because he couldn't drive properly.
Right. There have been problems. It doesn't always
Yeah,
crash,
but
but
the modern Doctors have all clashed
it
it.
is true. What do you think that says? That the TARDIS doesn't want a new Doctor? Is the TARDIS as reluctant to have a new Doctor as we are? You know?
I don't know.
I think it's just that they are too obsessed over their body parts to pay attention to driving it.
Yeah, it's the classic thing that Doctors new
teeth,
new
hair.
incarnation. Yeah, exactly. Are just confused
Although-
and messy.
To be fair, in her case, she didn't really do anything that caused it to crash. It was the fire that
Yeah.
shot out of Capaldi's arms that did it. So it's really Capaldi's fault that it crashed, not hers. But
Exactly.
yeah.
And I mean, people are gonna pick up on anything they can to make sexist jokes.
Right. It's been all over the internet, so I had to say it. But she gets only a few words. She gets to talk a little. We get to see her, and then she goes flying out of the TARDIS, and we end on a cliffhanger. And we now have to wait forever to find out what happens. Any final words?
Long live Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor.
I mean, the fact that the Doctor would regenerate into a woman was just hinted at so much in the whole series. I mean, you could at least see that Moffat was saying, "This is the time; it's gonna happen." But yeah,
Even though it
just
wasn't his decision.
Yeah, it wasn't. But even in just in the last episode, even the Doctor practically says it. Like he's I don't remember the quote exactly, but I remember.
Is the future female? There was something, and then he goes, we can hope.
Yeah, we can only hope, or something like that, yeah.
And I think Moffat originally did want to, when Matt Smith was supposed to be playing, I think he was originally thinking about it.
Yeah.
I think they've all thought about it, but I think they're too afraid. And I think, let's face it, it's a huge gamble. If it fails for whatever reason, if maybe just people don't like Chibnall's writing, it's going to be blamed on her. I mean, you gotta give her credit. I mean, it's a very daring move for him and for her because, like it or not, there are probably 5-10% of the audience that will not watch it just because of this, which is stupid. But it's going to happen.
It is a reality.
It's going to happen. It's the reality of the world. There are a lot of men who don't want to watch a show about a woman, just period, and don't understand why women don't want to watch a show about men. Oh, there are. I mean, I don't know how many percent.
I think they'll still watch it.
I think a lot won't. And maybe some will watch the first just to quote-unquote see how bad it'll be. But inevitably, I think the ratings are probably going to go downhill, because isn't that what happens on most shows? You have some shows that pick up for a few years, and Doctor Who did. You know, it came back, and through the entire Tennant era, the ratings got better and better and better, and they kind of stagnated during Smith's era and have been going down ever since. And that's what all TV shows do. You know, it was exciting and new and fresh, and like we said about most of this season, it kind of wasn't. Was there anything that made you go, holy crap, I love this, I can't wait? It was good.
The last 5 minutes.
Right. And episode 11. episode 11.
I also really like the entire second last episode.
But in general, it's not must-see TV anymore. And how many shows are after? I mean, it's been back for 10 years, and it was on for 26 before that. So we're on season 37 of the show as it comes back. I mean,
but you know what? I agree with you that there's probably more people than we hope that will stop watching because it's a woman. But I also think that there are a lot of people really, really, really excited about this and who are going to be really excited no matter how it goes.
Right.
And yes, there's an enormous pressure on Jodie Whittaker, but
that's unfair.
That's unfair, but it's still a win. And maybe it will actually bring in new viewers, or at least, for me, for example, I was getting kind of not bored with Doctor Who, but kind of, there are a lot of new things that I also want to watch. And Doctor Who is on its 10th season that I've been watching. And so obviously it's going to repeat itself at some point. And this got me excited again. So I'm obviously not the only one, because I know Alix feels this way too. So
exactly.
We can only hope that a lot of people feel like this and that it will actually bring a new light to the show. So I agree it's a huge gamble, but maybe it's a necessary one at this point.
Yeah. Well, on the plus side, let's take the examples of just the last year where DC's movies have kind of failed, and then in comes Wonder Woman and does brilliantly. Admittedly, it was a better movie, but there's a desire to see new images in the movies besides the same old white men superheroes. And then we have Black Panther, which is doing huge. No one saw this coming. It was only a last-minute decision to make the damn movie. And, well, apparently a good one. And there definitely is a thirst out there to see something different out there. I mean, even I'm a white man, and I don't want to see the same old faces, the same old images, the same old stories. I want new and fresh and exciting, and that means everything. There's 5 billion people on the planet. Let's hear their stories, you know? And then how many more in space?
That's a very lovely note and thought.
Good note to end a Doctor Who podcast on. You know? Hopefully, we'll be back to discuss the beginning of the Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall eras of Doctor Who, but until then, we've got lots of other episodes devoted to all things nerdy, especially A Song of Ice and Fire. Are there any other upcoming or recent episodes of Vassals of Kingsgrave that you've been part of that you want to give a shout-out to?
Let me say it again. The Jessica Jones Season 1 podcast is just out, and Season 2 is actually just out. I'm already 5 episodes in and enjoying it. So we'll probably have a Season 2 episode soon.
Cool. You can find other episodes of Vassals of Kingsgrave on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. Search for Vassals of Kingsgrave on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, and probably your favorite dating app. Feel free to let us know what you think in the comments, but if you really want to join in on the discussion, look for us on the forums at podcastoficeandfire.com. Thank you for listening. I'm David, and thank you guys, Jock, Marie, and Alix.
Thank you, David,
what did we
for
tell you
hosting.
about opening up dating profiles for Vox?
David. Let's go.
Shut up, David. We've been talking forever. I know we're running really late. We're only, almost 2 hours late.
Yep.
And I know it's late for you guys. I'm admittedly still up, but thanks to the joys of Red Bull, I'm still here. I slept a half hour. Is that good? This afternoon.
Great.
It's getting late for you all. So do any of you have like hard times you need to be gone, or should I be pushing us along to get this over with, or just let it go?
No, I don't have to be gone by, 2 a.m. But
let's move it along.
But I would love it if we didn't talk for like 3 hours.
Only 3?
Yeah. The problem for me would be I would start being incoherent after like 2 hours.
Yeah, I probably will too, though, so that's fine.
Plus,
So it won't be a Kraken cast where we go for like 5 hours.
Yeah, and I mean, we all love the show, and I know you have a lot of things to say about it, and that's great, but I also think like this is not meant to be a 2 hours episode once edited, so if you get my meaning, I guess we should try to stay on point and concise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, and we can always just cut ahead or just tell me, okay, enough of this, let's move on.
Yeah.
We can edit that out.
Shut up, David.
Shut up, David. We've been talking forever.
Yep.
It's all
right.
Alix's fault because I had a couple of drinks while I waited for her to show up.
I had a couple of drinks too.
Oh, good.
But
Then
you
we're all
probably
set.
guessed that from how late I was.
That's it. Well, it's all your fault, Alix, that we're both drunk.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
I'm not drunk. I
I'm
just had a
kidding.
couple beers.
I only had about 8 ounces of vodka. I'm fine.
You're fine.
That's a sip for me.
Okay.
Okay.
So, are we about
Let's
ready?
go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, hello everyone, and welcome back to Vassals of Kingsgrade, an offshoot of did I just said Kingsgrade? Let me start over.
Yes, you did.
I got our name wrong. I'm fired. You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Oh
Okay, we're going to be way
gonna
too
be
drunk
long.
for this. I know.
I think so, yes.
Well, we can, if we make a mistake in something else, it's fine. But, like, the name of our group is probably not something to mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that again. I'm just a little nervous for this part, but that's fine.
Shut up, David. Let's go.
Shut up, David. We've been talking forever. The tough
it
part,
was great.
though, is there's almost nothing to edit out of this. Like, we have good chat for 3 hours, and we can't put out a 3-hour podcast.
And
so.
it's relevant for once.
Right, I don't know how to, like, cut out any of that almost. Like, little bits we can, but, like, I can think of, like, 10 minutes to cut out of all that, maybe.
Well, if it's a long episode, it's a long episode. It's not a big deal. I mean, long episodes with good conversation is not a big deal. It's just when it kind of goes around in circles that's. Shut up, David. Let's go.
Shut up, David. We've been talking forever. Well, the good thing is, ironically, before I ever talked to any of these people, I met half of them.
Yeah. So,
And now it's so funny because no one knew who the fuck I was and was probably like, who the hell's this guy? Why is he here?
like I find that just so strange that it was hard for you to get the courage to be on a podcast, but you saw this mood happening and you said, yeah, hell, I'm gonna go.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, think about how many people were there that are people like, if you just listen to the podcast and you love listening, it was like the all-star mood, at least of the Americans. But at least Americans, not that you guys aren't all-stars.
I'm fairly sure I wouldn't have gone. Like, I met Alix a year ago, and it was terrifying, okay?
Really? You know what it is? See, I'm, first of all, an outgoing person, as you may have guessed, and I'm used to, because I used to go to conventions and stuff, so I'm used to the fanny stuff. And so it wasn't a big deal for me. And it was really more of a now or never. Because, let's face it.
Yeah.
When are you ever going to have Amber, Varley, Bina, Greg, Casey, Augustine... how many of there were like 8 people there. Brett came up. Everyone was there.
I'm so jealous that you met all of them.
Right, and that's the funny thing.
I'm in love with Brett.
And yet
so
no one knew who I was.
Jealous.
I don't think I think I said like 2 sentences to Brett because what am I supposed to say to you? You don't know who I am. I know about your kid. I know about your dogs. I know about your bidet. I know about everything.
Vermont.
Hell, I bought a bidet. I own a bidet because of that podcast. Okay. I really do. I almost never use it now, but I have it. I bought one of the ones that you attach to your toilet thing. Well, I've also been to Japan and done the real thing. Yeah. But that kind of pushed me over, like, yeah, why don't I get this? Save money on toilet paper, and then it's real.
Shut up, David. Let's go.
Shut up, David. We've been talking forever.
Hi, everybody. This is Julia. I haven't done a VOK in a long time. Jock, Matt, and I were just talking in the serial killer thread, and Jock mentioned that we were doing. You guys are doing Doctor Who, but you're in the after.
We're
show.
done.
Okay.
Oh, we're way after. We've been after for like 40 minutes now.
We've been saying we're going to go to bed for the past hour, approximately.
Yeah.
Okay. Matt, are you in here? Matt
Matt is in
not
here.
Well, someone needs to add him because he's drunk.
Oh no.
Oh, please, add him. Do something. Matt Varley.
So,
Here
look,
we go.
Here he is.
This was a stupid thing to say, and I'm not drunk. It's just 4:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So what?
Marie, that's okay because I'll pick up where you're, putting down. It is 10:30 and I'm very drunk.
But we still haven't found out what.
I was a little drunk at the beginning of the podcast, but it's worn off because the vodka's on the other end of the room and my headphones won't reach that far.
You've said
Plus, I'm hosting.
That's why I have Bluetooth headphones, so I can actually refill my drink while...
I know. I wasn't sure they'd be reliable, and I didn't have good Bluetooth on my old computer, and I just built a new one, so I may switch over at some point.
Oh, it's worth it, friend. It's worth it.
Shut up, David. Let's go.
Shut up, David. We've been talking forever.
I married a real jackass.
Julie, don't worry. My wife did the same thing.
No.
Marry a jackass? That was the joke.
Oh, you walked into that one.
You kind of walked into that, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But, no.
That's...
Shut up, David. Let's go.
Shut up, David. We've been talking forever.